5 o'clock. Was at this table. Yeah, I'll be covered more.
She is.
What a welcome, that was so nice, thank you. Cheers.
Pursuant to MGL 7C38, section 20F. After notifying the chair of a public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body, or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Beginning the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. This meeting is being recorded by the town of Barrington, by the Berkshire Edge, and by CTSB. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. So this is a joint select board and finance committee meeting, and we will start with the town manager and the town accountant and adjusted general fund operating and capital town manager budget recommendations.
Good evening. Steve, could you promote me to
Sure.
participant? Okay, list.
There's no one online, so you don't have to. Your co-host, right?
Emma?
Well, it says revoke co-host permission, so I hope.
Fantastic. All right. So then,
Yep, you're a co-host.
thank you. Okay, so. Good evening, everyone. Sorry about the delay. As you can imagine, numbers are constantly changing and coming in, and we've had to make large adjustments, but well, not large, but just minor adjustments in the memo that I had given and distributed on Friday to you. So we're gonna go through all of that tonight. And then go into the capital, the remaining capital of what I'm recommending now that we have kind of a game plan. And then we'll go through these, as the agenda says, we'll go through the some of the special article items and we can talk about it more. So let me share my screen. Okay. Okay. Okay, so just as a reminder, we had on March 19th, we had a very nice discussion on and providing me guidance as to what to do for the future on how to present and pull together the budget. We had 4 decisions that were discussed. The first one was whether there was no taxes whatsoever, or if there would be any consideration for an increase in taxes. And it was decided that it was a depends type of scenario. So we moved into number 2, which was what would that comfort zone kind of be of keeping in scale, so we could have kind of a ballpark to start the discussions, a new discussion on. And the board decided to keep it within the $2 million range. That would allow then also an additional $2 million from free cash, with a reduction in the general operating of $1 million as well. So when we got into decision number 3 about what that ballot question looked like, we were going to pause it for this evening. That was what was decided on March 19th. And then decision number 4 was basically giving me guidance as to what would really be the priorities for that $1 million reduction in the operating cost. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So some of the guidance that you had provided was retaining level staffs, making sure there was a 2% COLA, avoiding actual reduction of hours or closing of buildings, making sure that services that were important to the community and those in great need were retained in some way, pausing on filling vacancies, and then making sure there was kind of a balance between what the expenditures, so one department wasn't hitting the brunt of it versus another department. So, and some people said I couldn't do it, but I guess we did because I'm pleased to share with you that we have a good option for you to consider. And it really hits all of those marks. But it does come again with the caveat that there is a ballot question of $2 million, whether it be an override or a debt exclusion. Utilizing the $2 million in free cash, I was able to reduce operating costs by $6,379. I was able to achieve the 2% COLA for all union and non-union. Did not lay off anyone. We do have a hiring freeze and we'll talk about that. All the contractual obligations have been retained. I have an option for making sure that some of the core services that are discretionary can be still met, utilizing in a special article, option. And allowing the voters to decide whether or not, but it's not traditionally in the regular operating budget. And then also making sure that the capital, whatever is remaining can still follow what the guidelines for our objectives and utilizing free cash versus borrowing. So we're really being still disciplined in this manner moving forward. So with this reduction in cost, it actually reduces the operating budget down to $16,354,835, or a difference from FY 26, a negative 5.78% overall. So you can see the difference that the town operating budget is actually slashing versus some others. Some obviously with snow and ice this year, I don't have to really, it's Captain Obvious. We had a really hard year for snow and ice, so we're anticipating anywhere between 300,000 and 325 for our final figures on snow and ice. That's above what we budget 150,000 for in the regular operating. So this is an addition to 150. So you can see it costs a lot of money to maintain the roads and sidewalks for snow and ice over the course of a year. And some years we don't get any, so it's really fluctuates. That's why we have a kind of a semi in the operating, just a regular general line item, and then we can deficit spend, and that's the only line in the budget that we can actually deficit spend and then put it on the tax recap. Okay, going forward, the budget adjustments in your memo, and I had posted it online under the actual budget page. There was a 20-some page memo that outlines strategies as well as the actual reductions, and we're going to go through this. So because we had already gone through the operating budget once earlier last month, I'm going to go through each of the 33 different actual budgets within the general operating departments, and so we can go through it. So with the town manager select board budget, this is actually proposed to be an increase, and the reason for the increase is, if you read through the memo, is that I am proposing to centralize all of the purchasing as well as the travel and the training to actually realize some cost savings. There are some generic line items, like I said, as office supplies, travel and training, dues and memberships that are all within every single department page on budget. And so in order to find some cost savings as for whether it be buying in bulk or even saving in shipping costs and whatnot, that we're consolidating it within the town manager's budget. So we have actual centralized purchasing within my office. So we can buy everybody pencils, and then we have bulk. And then if somebody says, I need pencils, we grab it out of our storage and they have it, versus one department buying pencils and then another department buying pencils 2 weeks later, and then a third department buying pencils. You actually can realize a lot of cost savings. So I'm estimating around like $5,000 to $7,000 worth of savings just in this type of. I'm sorry, are you recording?
No, I'm just trying to.
Okay, just making sure, okay. So. Yeah, so so we can find some cost savings in that, as well as with travel and training. Making sure that gas mileage is a little bit more accounted for, things like that, that they have to go through my office to request those things rather than just doing it in general. And so we can have a little bit more oversight over just the general operations of it. So the same thing with dues and membership. So there might be a little cost savings here and there. If there's a little like $20 left over in the budget, it can be consolidated and pushed into something else. So we can kind of see the true cost of what it is for these things. So one of the other items within this town manager is that I'm reducing I'm omitting the parking clerk stipend of $1,500. That is currently right now with the building commissioner, as he has a stipend for that task, but that is something that I believe should be under the town manager jurisdiction. Usually parking tickets are issued on actual private, public ways or public property. And therefore, it should be the town manager that actually looks over the citations and the appeals of citations. So that'll be under my jurisdiction now, instead of being a stipend for some other employee. Social media, but now the current operating budget for the current fiscal year is 10,000. I am reducing it to 5,000. We had talked about this earlier, that we can do a lot more in-house, but still utilize the services in a way for emergencies and other things. So we're reducing that in half. The Housatonic water legal fees are being proposed to be shifted over into a special article. Because it is not a general operating expenditure, it is very specific to one certain item. So similar to what I had done in previous with the reserve fund, we actually had isolated it out, estimated the costs associated with that very specific item that is several years ongoing, but it will have an endpoint versus just general personnel legal or like labor legal or other types of legal that we need just on a general basis. So and then the same thing with postage. We are doing a lot more consolidation with services that we won't necessarily need, and shifting things online. So we might not need so much money in postage. So I am reducing the cost of $5,000 in here. Is there any questions on town manager?
Did you talk about travel and training?
I did. That is something that, yeah, travel and training is all of the departments are being shifted into the town manager's office. So that includes the, any hotels, any, gas mileage, and other types of training costs associated. So it'll have more oversight. Anyway, it's, this way, again, it needs staff needs town manager approvals for any of that anyway. So I can have a little bit more oversight in just making sure that these expenditures are being utilized in the best manner for moving forward rather than discretionary training and travel. Any other questions on? Yeah. Okay. All right, the finance committee. This is one that actually did change from the Friday's distribution of the memo. So in the Friday's distribution of the memo, it said 100,000. I'm actually lifting that up to 125. The reserve fund originally was 200,000, and I am going to be reducing that I'm proposing that we reduce it by $75,000 to 125,000 for some cost savings. Any questions on that? And then same thing, dues and memberships for finance committee can be shifted over to the town manager for oversight.
You think that'll be enough?
125?
Yeah.
I'm hoping so. So, so this past year, it was, there was some very specific, unusual items that came up, but typically reserve fund is for overtime costs. And so now that I also I'm here and I don't actually use legal as frequent as in previous town managers. I don't rely heavily on them because of my experience and other things. So I only utilize them when I absolutely need them or that I have done most of the homework and I just tell them, please check my work. So I don't have them work on very costly things until it's absolutely necessary. So I don't see that transfer of legal fees or other things not associated with whose ton of water works, but just in general. But over time, I'm working with the chief. We're gonna be really honing that in. Both chiefs are gonna be honing in on their overtime costs. And because I know that was a goal or that it was mentioned at the March 19th meeting that we need to be really honing that in and making sure that that is just watched more appropriately. Okay, so. Any other questions on?
Could I just comment that, I mean, historically, it was $100,000.
Okay,
And last year, because we had such an extremely lean budget, we tried to cut a lot of things, which we then found out this year just created some problems. We jacked it to 150.
yeah,
So I think 125 is still more than we're used to having, and I
Okay.
think that your oversight
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. Okay.
Oh.
The next is accounting. We currently have an assistant accountant position that is unfilled yet. But Ally actually, right now, the position has been unfilled since November, but November 7th. And we had paused hiring until just recently. We went through recruitment process. We actually did not find anyone suitable, but I didn't do as robust of a recruitment process as I could have. However, because of the current financial situation that we're in, Ally and I had talked about this, and this is something that Ally has agreed that the assistant accountant position that position could be split into two line items. And that $39,000 will actually go to Ally to do that work. So it's gonna be a part-time, so she's basically having a full-time job plus a part-time job. And working, I don't even know how you even do it now. And then we would have the clerical part, which we currently have Lisa Richards in the town manager's office. She is doing that for the last 5 months. And we would hire a part-time person. And again, this is only temporary. This would only be for FY 27 is what I'm proposing for these positions. We're not cutting the positions. We're just reallocating some money and finding some cost savings. And we'll get into the other two positions that I'm doing kind of the same thing. But it is very important that we retain the assistant accountant position. We need at least two people in that role, so I will have in that department. If Ally gets sick and we will not have an accountant, or something happens, she wins the lottery, all of that kind of stuff. And you have to play the lottery to win it, I know, but, I don't want you going anywhere, so, but yeah, so this is a way that we could find some cost savings, and be able to still serve provide the services and the, support for the town departments. And then similar with the expenses down further, the office supplies, travel and training and dues and memberships is being zeroed out and shifted over to the administration office. Any questions on accounting?
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm a little unclear. Is it then an overtime line?
No. No, because she is a salaried, she is a contractual, at will, but she's an exempt employee, so she doesn't actually have overtime. So I have to have a memorandum of understanding with her, and that's what I have currently, is that I pay her, it's not a stipend, it's an acknowledgement or additional funds for the additional work that she is doing. So I have a current memorandum of understanding with her or agreement with her that I pay her weekly additional funds for the extra work that she's doing, so I would extend that for FY 27. So it's still within, it's not a contractual service, it is an actual personnel budget.
And then in the future, your vision is to eventually, you will be going out for bid on an assistant
Right,
town accountant, and then
Yeah.
those two lines would then become the,
back up to 62, but the reason for this is not just within this budget, but the cost savings of doing this also is recognized in the insurance line. Because then we don't have to pay, and we're calculating the full benefit cost savings of having a new person there. So that's the reason why of this kind of strategy is that we'll be able to save, I think it's 24 or 28,000 per individual for insurance benefits. Okay, so the little savings that you see here is really not what it is. You have to add almost $30,000 in addition.
thank you.
Any other questions? Moving on to information technology, IT, I did reduce the IT coordinator stipend to 65 versus the 10,000 that I had originally had recommended. It is, I still truly honestly believe that Lisa's work and the amount that she is doing is the 10,000, but she has been really gracious in saying that she will cut it down, but just a little bit more, acknowledging that it's really for the full calendar year, the full fiscal year, that it is something that she can do for $7,500. So and then we have worked on the data services and the telephone, since March 19th, we have found cost savings with the data services transferring over to fiber versus internet. So actually our internet cost for all of the buildings is going to go away because we have put fiber into the buildings since then. So we were able to find cost savings on the data service line. And then the same thing with the telephone. We have been looking at all of the cell phones and the landlines that we have been, that we're currently paying, and we found some lines that are not being used. So we were able to extract that from the list, as well as cell phones, old cell phone numbers that we're still paying data plans on. So we were able to find some cost savings there. Any questions on IT? Okay. The assessor's office, this line, there was actually a discrepancy with a contractual obligation for the principal assessor, that I was not made aware of, that I looked at the hiring, letter of employment, and therefore my number was incorrect. It actually is, she will be paid 86,700 for that line for 27. So I had to boost that up. And so I'm just letting you know that that number had increased. However, the Board of Assessors actual line item that was proposed to be increased, but I'm putting it back down to sustained as for the FY 26 number. That is a stipend for the actual Board of Assessors for the work that they do for the abatements and reviewing the abatement applications. So this is for one member at $1,200. So I'm moving that back down to the FY 26 line item. And then the contractual services with the assessors, that is helping the assessor department go through all of the evaluations of the property. So, and that contract actually is what the department head budget requested. So I had to boost that back up, unfortunately. So that's the reason why the assessor's budget is increased more than what the original recommendation is. Those are contractual obligations. But the office supplies, travel and training, dues and memberships has been shifted into the town manager's office. Any questions on assessors? Are you sure, Bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Collector Treasurer's Office. This one's very simple. It is just a reduction of the office, office supplies, travel and training, and dues and memberships, which comes to about 62,000 that 6,200, excuse me, that comes out of that line and goes into the town manager's budget. Okay.
Yep.
The compensation and benefits coordinator,
Yes,
isn't that a new position?
it's already been filled.
It's already been.
Mhm. But that was actually a cost savings from the HR director that was originally, it became available after Thanksgiving. And we shifted it down. That was an 83 to $85,000 position. And so I actually readjusted it into a compensation and benefits coordinator position. And that is listed at 60,000. So there was actually $23,000 savings with that adjustment. That was done though prior to FY 27 budget.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else on? Public budget? Town clerk, the town clerk's line, I did, listen to you all about the stipend. And looked at the current job descriptions and so therefore I am proposing, new salaries without any of the additional stipends associated with the transfer station. So you'll see later on the budget, the transfer station budget does not actually reflect the stipends dedicated for the town clerk and the assistant town clerk, but it is listed, actually, it is incorporated in here. So you will see that there is a slight adjustment for the town clerks position. Their salary is an increase of $855 per that increase. And then the assistant town clerk is additional money for that role, adding in that had never been in the equation when those cost analysis, excuse me, when those salaries and the position analysis was done, those job descriptions weren't reflective of the true work that was done. So this is now basing it on to the actual real work. And but it's not also being separated out and having it as a stipend. It is just within the actual salary line. Additional adjustments within the budget is the overtime elections. I based the overtime for the elections line to be approximately 2,000 per election, which we'll have 3 elections this year in FY 27. We're having a primary and then a federal and then another for this town. So we have a one in November. So we have one in September, one in November, and then one in May. So we have 3 elections this coming fiscal year. So I'm approximating around $2,000 in overtime costs for elections. And that goes for police details as well as the town clerk staff that are not exempt, which is the assistant town clerk.
So
Yes.
on that, I mean. So you're budgeting 2,000 per election. How does that compare to our historical? Are you incorporating some efficiency gains there, or was it a bit over budgeted, for lack of a better term before?
So this was actually, it was interesting because in years past, Phil, the police details were never actually paid out of this line. So, but I feel that in order to identify true costs of running an election, it really should be identified in the town clerk's budget of how much it costs for that, because you have your election workers, you have all the other,
Right.
paper and supplies and everything that you do out of this budget. So because police details are required at the polls, that this should be in there. So there is some cost savings because I retained the police budget without reducing it in any way. To minus that, I increased it in the town clerk, so initially, but now we're shifting it back down to 6,000. The original budget for last year was $1,200.
Okay, so you're not budgeting, the line item doesn't include the police.
It does. The 6,000 in total includes the police details in that.
So Phil, I think that's why it's so much more than 1,200 in 2000.
Right. So FY 26 was $1,200. FY 27, I'm budgeting 6,000, or I'm recommending 6,000.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay. So then publications, I am recommending a slight adjustment in the publications line to $3,100 from the, 4,500. And that is based upon year-end actuals. Publications includes the code, which we do not have any zoning changes coming up in FY 27 because we don't have any zoning for this upcoming year. So we do not need to reprint the code books. So this allows the town clerk to have additional funds in there, but it won't be as robust of a printing job as in years past. So I'm shifting it down to the back to the, to cover the year-end actuals. And then similar to all the others, the office supplies, travel and training, and dues and membership is being shifted over to the town manager's office. Any questions? The conservation is a part-time, certainly a part-time position. So that is being retained as well as the board clerk. The only thing that is being shifted for conservation is the office supplies, travel and training, and dues and memberships. Any questions? Planning board is the next one that isn't in the memo because there isn't any adjustments. They're retaining the board clerk. So there's no changes with the planning board line items. So what is in your original packet and budget binder retains for the planning board. But you have a new printout in your handout that we gave out tonight. The planning, community and development budget, there is, in addition to the office supplies, travel and training and dues and memberships that's being shifted, there is a reduction of $5,000 within the economic development and transportation line. That is a stipend that is given to the transportation director, the transit director position to assist with transportation planning. And right now, we're gonna be going through a full kind of reorganization, restructuring of transit, how it's actually incorporated into the operations within. Right now, it's kind of isolated. It's in a separate gray floating to the side. And so I am reducing that stipend out of there because I don't know if that's absolutely necessary when we reconfigure the actual operations and the job descriptions and everything. So that stipend is gonna go away until I actually can recognize that that is something that's absolutely needed. Any questions on this? That reduction, let me just remind everybody, that reduction of 5,000 does not impact transit operations. It is associated with actual planning initiatives when it comes to the assistance of community development and looking over plans and things like that. It has nothing to do with the actual transit operations. Okay. DPW buildings and grounds. There's a little bit more because this is a bigger budget. There's a little bit more involved with this. There was some cost savings with some longevity that we had found through retirements. Electricity, I reduced it based upon year actuals. year-end actuals of 25, but then giving it a buffer to make sure that there was some comfort zone with the increased electric costs that we're seeing currently. But that could fluctuate, as we all know, it could change tomorrow or it could change in an hour. So I'm putting it in a kind of comfort zone, but, of where we can see, there's still a little bit of a buffer. And that's the same with heating, oil and gas, as well as water and sewer rates. Building repairs, this is being reduced by $50,000 only because there are actual capital expenditures, capital projects that we've already borrowed for certain buildings. For example, this building, we have already borrowed for the elevator, so we can utilize some of those costs that have been already borrowed to extract from that borrowing account and pay for things that are within the scope of that borrowing. So there is an estimated $50,000 worth of savings there that we do not need to spend, but we still have a comfortable $150,000 for building repairs. It's not supplies, it's just repairs to the building. But if there's anything that is greater than that, that would obviously require a capital expenditure and more procurement, more of planning initiatives if we had something that was a much larger expenditure, so. The next is grounds.
I presume there's sort of rules you have to follow if you're gonna be using borrowed funds for
Yes.
building repairs, right?
Yes, yes. So, so this is where, like, for example, the elevator, we have already borrowed for the repairs of it. So these are prompting actually questions as to why are we not doing that and going forward with the procurement instead of waiting and having it hanging there. So this is, these are questions that I've asked that we can move forward with the bigger projects so we can correct.
So who's the referee on those? Because it comes down to compliance with
Yeah,
state law and also the bond financing arrangements and all that fun stuff.
right. So it's a combination of multiple people looking at it and sitting at the table. Yeah. So that would not be done in an isolated
All right, so
solo
you're very well.
decision. Oh, yes, I am. Grounds repairs, being reduced by $5,000. So the reason why, if you look at your actual workbook sheet, you'll see that there was a year-end actual, that there is a zero amount on the year-end actual. That is because buildings and grounds repairs actually was combined together into one line item, but it didn't detail out really the true cost. Buildings are completely different than grounds, and we should know how much it costs for building repairs versus ground repairs. So in this year, during the budget process, we isolated those out into two different lines. So we can kind of keep a better track of what really is being spent on grounds repairs versus buildings. So again, this is all kind of in flux right now. We don't really know the true cost unless we do a full complete audit that requires time for FY 26 or 25 to kind of estimate, but these are guesstimates now of what it would be, and we feel comfortable having a $5,000 reduction in the grounds line item that we can adjust if we need to in the future, but we feel confident that we can get everything done within that $45,000 budget. The next line that actually is being zeroed out is the clothing and uniforms. That is being shifted over to the DPW highway line item. You'll see an actual uniforms line that is a very large number, and we'll get into that a little bit. But this is being shifted over to there because we'll consolidate and have some cost savings, and I'll talk about that when we get to the budget line for that. Park cemetery supplies, I am proposing a reduction of $10,000 to bring it down to 15,000. However, keep in mind that I had actually increased that line item to above an additional funds. I initially had proposed $25,000. So I'm bringing that down to $15,000. So that's just reducing it back down, omitting what my original recommendation was. Custodial supplies is being reduced by $6,000. I'm bringing it down to the department head's request of 12,000. And we can see some cost savings if we're gonna be doing centralized purchasing through my office. That can also be assisting with the cost savings and any bargain shopping that Lisa's really good at doing, so. And then travel and training, same thing with all the other lines, we're shifting that over to the town manager for consolidation and oversight. Any questions on buildings and grounds? And let me remind everybody again, there's no personnel reductions or impacts in this current line. So there are no reductions, even though we have some vacancies in this. All of the reductions that are being proposed in this new adjustment proposal is only for non-union employees. So there are 3 positions that are within this adjustment proposal. And I'll just outline them really quickly. It is the assistant accountant, it is the health inspector, as well as the deputy police chief. Those 3 positions are non-union related. All union positions would actually have to be contractually negotiated out if I were to subtract those or not fill them in any way. We do have openings within DPW with all of their departments, so buildings and grounds, in their highway as well as in wastewater. I am not proposing to make any reductions in those workforces because of the unionized manner of it, so. So this is all staying at the same, so we can keep going and fill those positions and make sure that those services and that the community is being served in that manner, okay? I know that's very important for the town, making sure our roads and our properties are maintained and sustained, so I made sure to keep that in mind. Any questions on building grounds? Next, police department. Thank you. The police department has currently, as I mentioned, the deputy police chief is vacant. That position actually, we were, because we have an interim police chief, we were for a year, the position, the interim contract is good until January 5th of 27 anyway. So that position, we were gonna have some cost savings for the first half of 27. But my recommendation is actually hitting the pause button on that, just to make sure that that is something that we absolutely need versus maybe possibly another sergeant or dropping it down. So I don't really know. And the interim chief and I have not had any chance to discuss this. It's not eliminating the position, it is just not funding the position at this time for 27. So we can kind of get a gauge as to what our new revenues are coming in, where we can put money back in, and then reprioritize. So that was another reason that I have itemized all of these out for everybody, so we can understand and then be able to create a strategy of putting things back in for either in the middle of the year or even for 28, okay? So everything is documented for us. Okay, so the deputy chief with the cost savings, and that is the salary line item of the cost savings, that does not include, but you'll see it in the insurance line, is the savings for the full benefit of family role, the cost savings of that insurance. The parking control officer is being proposed to be reduced, zeroed out. Not eliminated, but just reduced. So if we can get it in for 28, that's great, but all the police officers, all the sworn in police officers actually have that in their capacity to write and issue parking citations. So this is just eliminating a dedicated part-time position for the summer. Training is being reduced by 20,000 down to where the chief had recommended initially is $20,000, down to 65. There was actually cost savings. We didn't equate, the retirement of Chief Storty in the longevity, so we were able to save $750 from that in the longevity, so, that's a reduction. The education and tuition, that is an increase, that is a contractual obligation that will be as of, FY 27. So that has been already negotiated, so we have to include that back in. So that's in addition to the 40. That could fluctuate. That is the way that the contract has been negotiated. It is to assist them with any student loans while while they're actually in the workforce here in Great Barrington. So, this is just a placeholder. It could be less. It could be, this is from the police union. They have estimated approximately 10 officers at $3,000 would be assisting with their student loans while they're actually employed by the town of Great Barrington. So this would assist them, for that cost. The reduction of office supplies, again, would be shifted over to the town manager's line. Office equipment, we have a reduction of $1,000, and that is based upon the year-end actuals for FY 25. The events line in the police department is being recommended as omitted completely. Originally, the police chief had recommended $1,000. I had bumped that up to 5,000 because we will hopefully we're wanting additional events. But you'll see in the special enhancements, the service enhancement line, there is an arts and culture and celebrations line item that we can be able to possibly incorporate any new events or other things associated with the police department in that line item. So it would be as a special article and a special thing. It is not traditional for actual operating. So it's a nice, not a need. Additional equipment, there's a reduction of $1,000 for that. And that is based upon the year-end actuals. The vehicle supplies as well is being reduced, because we have newer vehicles. We're not gonna be actually utilizing as much of the vehicle supplies or repairs for that line item. And then crime prevention also was decreased to what the the police chief had recommended of $20,000 for that line. And then subscriptions for the police department, that is actually staying in their line. Several departments have subscription lines, and I do not know, I'm not familiar with it as much, so I'm keeping it within there because there are specific subscriptions necessary for the police that is very nuanced and detailed for the chief knows all about, and I want him to still retain full control over that. However, the travel and training, dues and memberships, and like I said earlier, the office supplies, that is all being shifted over to the town manager's jurisdiction. Any questions on the
Question on, with the parking control officer,
Mhm.
with the removal of one part-time position. Those positions is, do we have a number for how much they bring in each year? The parking.
The local receipts for that?
Yeah, for what they, as they're ticketing during summer and all that, because, I do know that they do, they're out there, during our high season, and I wasn't sure if that's, like an even, or if they actually bring in money for it.
I'm not
Just for the
100%.
enforcement, it's pretty important, I think, during the summer.
It is if there is a cost associated with the tickets being not appealed and the appeals not being approved. So I'm not familiar with,
I know since we recently contracted that work out, the company was sorting it out, so I think it alleviated us from overtime. So if we can just look into that and see if it's, yeah,
absolutely,
that would be appreciated, thank you.
absolutely. That is something that, again, I'm looking at it more comprehensively, Eric, for FY 27 in addition to other departments and seeing how you know, you and I have talked about also just the need for more economic development and how we can support and promote and doing more customer friendly approaches. So I'm in favor of more a positive enforcement rather than negative enforcement. Parking tickets actually are negative enforcement. So you're slapping that orange ticket on somebody and you're giving them a negative experience when they come to town or that they're in town and you're, so my philosophy is we need to be looking at this in a more holistic way as signage, is it actually appropriate in setting people up for success? Are maps and online guides, are the staff actually assisting with directing people to the right areas of where they can be set up for success for parking? So those are things also reason why I want to actually have the parking hearings officer under my jurisdiction. So when those appeals come in, I can actually see where we can fine tune our services externally going outward. So then we can actually, like I said, have more of a positive enforcement rather than a negative enforcement. So people are self-enforcing themselves versus, so my goal is, the ultimate goal is actually that we don't issue any parking tickets because people are doing things correctly, right? So as of right now, the actuals for revenues generated for FY 25 was $30,000. So it was a $10,000 in, actually, no, because you have to minus out the 1,200 for the parking stipend too. So it was around $8,000.
For a year.
Right, for the full, for just
The
for the
entire-
summer.
That's the whole year.
For the whole year, sorry, that's for the whole year. I don't know how many tickets are being issued either. Now, the other thing is that we can look at our actual parking fines and see what we're charging for handicap versus, or for other types of like overtime or, other violations, whether they're in a, fire lane or other things. So we can maybe find the cost savings in those areas that we can increase the fines to make it a little bit more, yeah.
I just had a math clarification. So you said for education and tuition, it was 10 officers at 3,000 each, or is that?
Yeah.
That's because it says,
It's estimated.
so we're going a little high just in case, or?
Well, the 40,500 is in addition to the original 10,500 is for education and tuition just as it was, but we have an additional 30,000.
So
that from the
additional
contract-
10, got it.
Yes, in addition to the
Okay,
10,500.
that's,
Yeah.
how it might be then.
Yep. Any other questions for police? Fire department. The fire chief and I are working on entering into a contract versus him being a will employee. So this has been our negotiated salary, so we're finalizing that contract. So this will be his salary, so we found a $9,000 cost savings for that negotiation. The on-call firefighters, I have reduced it by 13,000, that's based upon last, end of year-end actuals for 25 with a little, buffer, included in that for the call firefighters. So it's not reducing it, completely or bringing it down to what the year-end actuals for 25 is. It is making sure that it is just nice and comfortable in case we do have an emergency. Equipment maintenance, just a reduction of $2,000. Again, this is based upon year-end actuals, but making sure we have a comfort zone for anything that comes up unexpected. The year-end actuals for 25 at that line was at 58, 624. So again, 70,000 is providing around $12,000 of additional just comfort zone money for equipment maintenance for the firefighters. The same thing with the equipment testing is a reduction down to 15,000 versus my recommended 17. The actuals for FY 25 were around 12,000. $475. So again, this provides a cushion for the equipment testing in case there's increases in costs for any vendors that we have to have the equipment such as any tanks or anything like that they need to be doing, in anticipation of those, increased costs. Vehicle supplies, I had recognized actually that was zeroed out and hadn't been in there. We had no line for vehicle supplies whatsoever. So I had put in $8,000. That is a comfortable number for anything that happens with the actual vehicles of the fire trucks. So we'll gauge it, but that's a new line item that was not included in the past for them. Travel, training, office supplies and dues and memberships, all three of those lines again have been shifted over to the town manager's line for cost savings. Any questions on fire?
Can you give some examples of the vehicle supplies? I'm a little stumped.
Like tires? Or anything that's within a fire vehicle, an apparatus that needs a repair.
Doesn't that seem really low?
It depends on what it is that might need the repair or supplies
Oh,
so. Yeah,
But there wasn't a line item for it.
no, there wasn't, no.
Or was it paid for in the past?
It's similar to other lines that we haven't actually teased out and started labeling. It's kind of been just tucked in with other things. So we're kind of isolating and trying to segregate it out so we can have a little bit better of an auditing process, a public auditing process.
Well, presumably there's the equipment maintenance and repair.
That's a little different. So equipment maintenance repairs is actually with their actual equipment. So,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
I know,
It went in somewhere, right?
yes. Any other questions? Emergency management. Emergency management is, I think it was just the office supplies. I don't know why that was not in there. Thank you. That's all. Thank you. So the equipment maintenance that has been reduced by $800 based upon actuals, year-end actuals of 25. And then the office supplies has been shifted over to the town manager's line. Any questions on emergency management? Building inspections, and I've labeled the slide for weights and measures because this is again another example of hidden costs that we weren't actually recognizing that it was in there until over the weekend. And that's why we had a little bit of an adjustment, and I sent you an email about that yesterday, that the building inspector is now a shared regional service that is through the town of Stockbridge. I was unaware that the town of Stockbridge has one portion of it, but the town of Lee takes care of their admin positions. So there's two different contracts for the same service, and so there's two different budgets. And then on top of that, weights and measures is also tucked into this, but that's through the state. So this is a lot. And so once I was able to confirm with the town of Lee and look at the contract for the state that had just been negotiated back in July of last year. This number here is the actual cost, and there is a reduction of $22,803 between all three lines within the contracted services. My goal is to have that actually more itemized out in there, in this line, that Ally and I can do internally for coming up, is actually have a weights and measures line item for the state. versus then Berkshire Build, associated, so things don't get lost and we know what the cost is. And then also that'll be part of my goal for FY 27 is looking at working with the towns and looking at weights and measures and seeing what the ultimate cost is and seeing then if there is some savings to possibly getting an additional inspector in Berkshire Build to do weights and measures. It is a very nuanced, detailed, specific type of job for weights and measures. So all of the gas stations, the deli, the scales at your self-checkouts, the price scanners, any type of consumer complaint that prices were charged higher than what it was listed at, that they weren't ringing it up correctly. Anything that was advertised in an actual newspaper for a deal that was happening this week and that it wasn't honored at the store. Those are all through weights and measures on that. And so it is a very specific for sealing of weights as well. It has to have all these certifications through the state. So it is a very detailed, very specific type of job. And it requires a lot of equipment. Also, you have to have an enormous amount of provers and weights and all these kinds of things that, but I'm gonna be talking to the other towns and seeing if it's something that we can consolidate and maybe find some cost savings instead of having somebody from the state come down and do that for this region. But for the meantime, we do have to pay for it. So it's approximately 14,000 and some change that we pay on an annual basis to the state for the weights and measures services. Any questions on the building inspector's line? Animal control is next. We had put in the professional services, that is actually for the kennel rental. And we had our local kennel, as I mentioned in our operating budget meetings earlier last month. I had mentioned that our local kennel is closed and these are kind of a placeholder for costs. We had guesstimated around $5,000 for the increase in the kennel operations. So because that is really an unknown, we've shifted that down to $3,000. Because again, that we just don't know what the cost, and it is dependent upon what animal that we do take in or and have to house. So, and then the same thing, travel, training, supplies, that's been shifted into the town managers. Any questions on animal control? DPW highway. As I mentioned, all of the unionized employees and the current positions are kept. They have the 2% COLA. There's no reduction of hours or anything. There was a reduction that we found in longevity due to retirement that will be coming up in 27. The contracted services, this is based upon previous years, that it was around $45,000 for 25's estimated year-end actuals. So I brought that number down for FY 27 to 45,000. Landfill monitoring has been shifted over to, and that was already done in previous, but it still had actually not been deleted out of this line. So we were basically paying twice on it in our calculation, so I reduced it. The tree services, again, also has been reduced and it's now being recommended at $50,000. This is something that we can do, that we do contract out for the tree service through the Berkshire Regional Planning. We do a bid for it, but this is something that it is sometimes discretionary, sometimes mandatory when trees fall on the road, but there also is tree trimming that could be paused or shifted to the future year to take care of. So we're going to reduce this by down to $50,000. And then public works supplies, I'm recommending a reduction of $5,000 out of the public works supplies line. That originally, the year-end actuals for 25 was around $25,000. So I'm bringing the 27 number down to where it was in 25 expenditures. And then the same thing with the other departments, office supplies, travel, training, dues and membership, all being shifted over to the town manager. Any questions? I'm sorry, any questions on highway? Transfer station, as you'll see, I took out, like I mentioned, the stipends that was dedicated for the town clerk and the assistant town clerk that has been taken out. And then there is a kiosk that has not been installed, but we are paying for it, or budgeting for when it would be installed and the software that's associated with that and the credit card fees of $3,500 in total that is being removed. So we're not going to install that. It's an automated kiosk that also we couldn't figure out, or it hadn't been decided how to actually manage somebody and regulate and enforce through this kiosk. So there's still a lot of questions that haven't been, the answers haven't been found yet. So we're hitting the pause button on putting this in, and we still have the transfer station operators, IMB, the staff, the recycling center staff, so that will still, hours aren't being reduced, the staffing isn't being reduced, so it's still Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Nothing's changed. It's just that we're not implementing a kiosk, an automated kiosk that we haven't installed yet. It's sitting there, but we're not gonna budget for it for this current year.
I've had a bugaboo about that for several years now. I brought that up, like, what about the kiosk? So. Yeah, and I don't think there's something, it sounded good in theory, but it obviously just never, materialized.
Yeah, with transfer stations, it's very tricky because if you're gonna go with an honor system, that's not really the best place to do an honor system. So you have to have humans watching human activity for that location. So I too had a lot of questions, and therefore, because we hadn't just ironed it all out, we can hit the pause button and take our time before we implement anything like that.
Is there another town that would want to buy it? Just one.
So. We'll see what the value was, if it's the right spot or what it is, but that is yet to be determined, so, and, it won't be for FY 27, so. Any questions on the transfer station? No. All right, the health department, this is one of the areas that I had mentioned, the health inspector position has remained, unfilled. Since actually prior to my arrival in early November, and I've reached out to a local regional health inspection service, and they are going to assist us with anywhere between 15 and 18 hours a week to assist with health inspections, especially during the height of the seasons. So any type of renewals for restaurants and housing inspections, things like that. I have entered into an agreement with this contracted service. So again, this though is not a permanent, I do not want to eliminate the health inspector job in any way. It is just for FY 27 to shift it over to a contracted service. So Rebecca can get the help that she needs, and she can then work on what is in her capacity of septic inspections and perk tests and all of the things that are under her jurisdiction, but then have somebody that is fully capable to do the health inspections as far as food testing, doing those on a quarterly basis, or the making sure that, if there's any complaints on health of food establishments or anything like that, that we have somebody that we can assist with those kinds of things. And then travel, training, dues and memberships and the supplies, again, similar, just shifted over to the town manager's office. Any questions on? Oh. Okay. Next is the community services, which is the the leases for the properties of the American Legion and the VFW. This is an assisting of a non-town affiliated entity. This is being, because it is not actually related in any way to town operations, it should not just in general be in the general operating budget. So I am proposing having this shifted into an actual special article, so that way the community can decide if they want to assist with paying the leases for these entities or not. So it is not that I feel positive or negative about this in any way. The general operating budget should be about the general operating and not about nonprofits and supporting other types of entities that we should, if we're going to have this type of it should just be in an actual special article and not in the general fund. Okay.
So when you're running all this through to get the complete town budget and tax levy, are you assuming that all the special articles are approved?
Yeah, further down, you'll see it. Actually, it's in the breakdown of free cash. So we're gonna be, if it is approved, then it would be actually taken out of free cash.
Gotcha.
So, again, it'll be a special article specifically for the leases of the BFW and the American Legion. So, any questions on this? Any other questions?
I guess I just have, and this isn't for this year, I mean, I understand that we go to a special article. So that we don't have to come back to it every single year in the future, could we have a special article that said for 5 years?
No, it has to be done on an annual basis. So. And the reason for that, Anne, is because the community could be changing their desire for what they want to spend their money on. So it could be another nonprofit that, like St. James Place, wants to have their leases actually subsidized by taxpayers. So this allows the community to have those conversations. It is important to have those conversations. And that's why it should not be in the general operating. It is not a town function. It's not a town department. It is not mandated by the state, similar to veteran services, where we have to have a veteran agent and we have to supply all of those services locally. These are not, these are discretionary based upon the community wants, and this is a decision based on the community. Okay. Council on Aging. The Council on Aging line items, the Council on Aging director is being reduced. I had recommended boosting that up to balance out and be comparable to other communities and for the workload that she does, but that is not based upon and I'm sorry, it was asked by the boards to re-examine that and wait for a different time to do that. So I'm giving the 2% increase. So there was some cost savings of $4,570 based upon my original recommendation, and now just bringing it down to the 2% increase. There was actually, when we did our longevity calculations and review once more based upon the new different fluctuations in personnel, it was realized that we missed adding in Joan's longevity. Is her first year doing this, so I had to put in the $300 for the longevity for that. The same thing with the outreach salaries. My recommendation of 25,000 has been brought back down to what the actual town meeting vote plus the 2%. So this position will have the 2% increase, but nothing more. And then, so here we go again, office supplies, travel, training, and dues and membership will all be shifted over to the town manager's office. And you can see the repetitiveness of it is a very easy thing to go and consolidate into one office. You can see that, so. Any questions on council on aging? Veterans Affairs, that is an assessment that, so I was not able to look at that or consider that for any reductions and we had that discussion earlier too. This is something that I feel that is actually underpaid. So this has not been touched. There's no changes for the Veterans Affairs. The libraries. The same thing with the library director position that I had originally recommended boosting that up and now we're bringing it back down plus the 2%. So, the savings of $2,087 is based upon her last year's salary plus the 2%. Office supplies will be shifted over to the town manager's office. Library supplies, is being reduced by $1,000. Excuse me, the uniqueness about the libraries also is that they have a Friends library that does a lot of fundraising and they have a budget. So the items that are within this, the reductions within this budget is something that could be subsidized by the Friends group. So, so there is really no reduction in the way that they're going to be operating in any way or that their services is just out of the general operating and rather, okay. The non-printed material, I had actually boosted that in my original recommendation and then I'm bringing it back down to what the department head's request was, actually giving her an additional $1,000. So she had originally recommended or requested 29,000 and I am recommending 30,000 because of the increase in non-print material, the subscriptions or anything like the ebooks, I believe. Because there's been an increase, we're at the equal level, which her presentation had said. Subscriptions, that is being reduced down to $30,000. She had originally, I'm sorry, that was the 29, I'm sorry. So, she had asked for 29 for the subscriptions. I'm sorry about that. So, and I'm giving, I'm recommending a $30,000 budget line item for that. And then travel and training and dues and memberships also is being shifted over to the town manager's office. Any questions? Parks is, the parks budget within DPW, that one, as you can see, is the biggest adjustment, in how, the approach for this. Currently, we have $7,500 for camera operations. I am recommending not paying for those this upcoming year. It is not mandatory or required. It is a nice to have. But it is something that, that can be reduced down to zero for this current fiscal year, upcoming fiscal year.
Carlos, does that mean that there are cameras mounted at the parks and we're just not paying some service provider to provide?
That would be correct.
Green?
We are all concerned. The reason they were put up is because of large amount of vandalism.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know the answer to this. Did we use the videos that we got from those cameras much this year?
I don't know. It was last year was the first year that it wasn't it wasn't in years past, so I don't have any information on that, so. There was a board admin stipend that was, dedicated to the admin assistant for DPW. That is being eliminated. That is already been, when I rewrote the job description, that was already incorporated into the line, into the job duties and within the new pay scale for that position. And that position is listed in DPW highway. Parks improvements, I had originally increased my recommendation to give additional funds for the department and for parks improvements, but I am reducing that back to 10,000. So it still gives an additional 5,000 over last year's town meeting vote. I feel it is absolutely necessary to make sure that we have an adequate funding for any types of repairs and improvements to the parks. Now, the lifeguards, that is being recommended to be shifted to a special article so that the town meeting voters can vote and decide on whether or not we have lifeguards. This is not a requirement. It is not mandatory that we have lifeguards. So this is something at $61,000, that it could be shifted over to a special article, and it is incorporated into the free cash calculations. If they are voted, if it's voted in.
So the skate park monitor doesn't appear here because it was forgotten.
That's
again,
correct.
And then it would have appeared there and then
Right.
just moved over.
So it's not actually right, so
Yeah.
it's not in the cost savings of the $1 million because it wasn't ever in the in the grand scheme of $17 million. So that's why it's not in here, but it is, like you see, like you said, Steve, and further down, it is put in there as a placeholder of $32,679.
Perfect.
Okay,
I have a question.
yes,
I don't know if this is the right time to ask, but I'll ask if we're shifting that lifeguard money and using it, so to speak, that we thought we had, or I have anyway, don't know the idea of charging to get into the lake. Can some of that money be put for someone to monitor? There's only one way in, so I don't know why there was such, to me, I didn't see why it was such a big fuss, because there's only one way in, so it's not anybody sneaking in, and I don't know if we need a police presence if we have one way in. People, I think, are respectful, they're not gonna run by a teenager or a young adult to get into the park.
they would. I live in an area where that happens, so, or I'm from an area, I'm sorry, I live here now, I live here. Sorry, but I'm from an area where that is a consistent, you pay $20 for a teenager for the summer to monitor and collect $20 to enter, and at that area, it would be also for residents. So the way that the state, because of the way that it's, the requirements and conditions would be that if you charge for one, you have to charge for everybody. So if we even charge $5 for non-residents to come in, the residents would also have to be charged $5. So,
Okay.
yeah, so it could be, that is a way to offset the costs associated with supporting staffing, but you would have to just make sure that if it's approximately, let's just say it's $20,000 for the summer at 40 hours a week at $20 a week, $20 an hour for one individual, and it's from 8 to 5, but that's only 5 days, so you'd have to have a second person for another, let's say $15,000 at a part-time job. So now we're at $35,000 for 2 people, and you'd actually have to have a third in case they're sick. So there's a lot of nuances, and then you have to then equate into the lifeguard costs as well. So we're looking at over $100,000 for additional costs for making sure our revenue can support that service. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it just can't be done currently for this fiscal year.
Was that a state or a city law? I don't remember. I'd been down to Kent State Falls in Massachusetts, excuse me, in Connecticut. I was charged $10 because it's out of state, and people who live there weren't charged anything, so I don't know why.
Yeah, it is a requirement based for Lake Mansfield for that park area.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, and I don't want to spend too much more time on this, but you're saying, historically, we've been told that we cannot charge people to use Lake Mansfield. If I hear you if I'm understanding you, you're saying we can charge, but we have to charge equally to residents and non.
That's right.
That's sort of okay, so it's an evolution of prior.
It is.
Like that.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, but let's move on.
Let's move on.
Yes.
But no, that's a really good idea, Garfield, and it really should be actually across the board, like all the services additional services that we charge in general we should be looking at the fees and the revenue and making sure that there is some cost, that recovery. And that is something that we're gonna be doing coming up in May and June, is we're looking at the fees and you will be presented with fee increases for a public hearing. So that is something that we're gonna be doing, okay, to make sure that we're realizing some of the offsets, okay? It's part of the full strategy that was in your budget book, okay? Any other questions on parks? Various boards, this was, I had increased my recommendations and then now it's bringing it back down to equal amounts between the Historic Commission, Historic District Commission, and the Troy Committee. So, there's the only actual real reduction, on line items is the Historic Commission, their year-end actuals, even though they were budgeted for 5,000. Their year-end actuals for 25 was 3,000 over it. I don't know if that's a glitch for that 1 year or not, but I'm bringing it back down to where, last year's town meeting vote was. And then making sure that the Agricultural Commission actually has that $2,000 for their events that they do have. Any questions on various boards? Celebrations, celebrations is, being proposed to be, zeroed out. And this is being proposed, the $16,000 is being proposed in the service enhancement section. That then it's called arts and culture / celebrations. So the $16,000 for that, or even the 1,200 from based upon 25's numbers, that would be paid out of the arts and culture service enhancement line. That would be a special article. Any questions on this? There is no changes for debt service. I can't change it. I wish I could. But that's the line for debt service. Retirement line is, again, a cost savings. I was able to get an updated number on, the retirement line. Actually, I'm sorry. Thank you. It is, so it was realized that there was in the transit grants and other funding, that they had equated and put in their lines, itemized lines of how they got their totals for the grants. Benefits for the employees was included, but it was actually never shifted over to the budgets. So we'll have some cost savings for FY 26, but this is an anticipation for FY 27 as well. So when we did this full analysis, we realized that part hadn't been officially switched over to the town to recoup, to where we're paying additional for what the grant is giving us. And that's for 4 employees. 4 or 5? 5. Any questions on this?
I'm sorry, what are we talking about? Travis?
The retirement line?
Oh, okay, I thought we were talking about.
Yeah, the retirement, there's,
Okay.
yep. The insurance line. This is the insurance line is for the annual contributions for the 3 full-time benefited eligible employees that we're not filling. And then life insurance also was tucked in from transit for this line item for life insurance.
Well, just to clarify, just from an earlier comment, it sounds like health insurance, the cost of the town for health insurance for each employee is about $35,000.
It's about 28, I believe.
Over the copay is 7.
I'm not sure. It depends on the plan that they have.
They call it county's plan.
For a full family.
Right.
I believe is it 24 or 28? The numbers. I'm not,
But that's not the full cost of the insurance, because they're,
that's the town's contribution for it.
okay, thank you.
Mhm. But again, Phil, I'm working with,
No, I'm not, I'm
Yeah.
not going down that.
Yeah.
That's, we could spend 4 hours on that.
yeah, we could.
And we will.
All right, any other questions on insurance?
So can you go back to the transit also?
Yeah, I actually didn't create a slide for that. I apologize. Okay, so transit offset in the memo, you'll see that there is again, we were not getting the employee benefits shifted over to the actual operating budget. So this there's an estimated $180,000 that was being identified from grants that had not been put into the operating budget. So this is this will happen for FY 27.
I'm sorry, the acronym FTE, I'm just.
Full-time employee
Right, sorry.
benefits. Mhm.
But this is in the insurance.
It's not the assurance and it's not the retirement, the Medicare. This is actual insurance. This is offsetting we did an initial review of it. It actually, that's why I'm gonna be doing a more comprehensive review over transit and we're gonna be enveloping it right into operations. As you can see, it's not really included in the line item. It's not included in the 16 million. It's not included at all. So this is gonna be something that we're moving forward. Either it's gonna be in the general operating or it's gonna be as an enterprise account. We don't know, but there is no offsets identified. So we're gonna be doing a much more comprehensive review on the true cost of what it runs. Even though it's a regional and there's money that comes in from different sources outside of the town's current analysis, and this is just lowballing it actually, is 180,000 that I had identified saying that it's because it's in grants and they're utilizing it, but it should have been actually shifted over to the town's operating because it was in the equation of their line items when they were submitting for grants. Any questions? Does that answer your question?
I think so. In the original budget, unless I'm misreading my, any of my notes, there was a transit budget line.
In Council on Aging,
Okay. Yeah, okay. And I have something more you know. Okay.
mhm.
Okay.
All right. So now we're on the free cash. Okay, so that being said, with all the free cash that we have, I'm gonna go over it, and it is in your memo that I had provided you, okay?
Can you give us what page you did?
The free cash, it's a little jumbled, so I'm sorry. Let me go on. So in the memo, it is page 16 at the bottom. You'll see this graph at the bottom, okay?
Yeah.
And I segregated them out into various slides so we can go through it, okay? So I have outlined it also in a narrative above those graphs, so you can see kind of, and it's isolated out. So number one is the cannabis settlement total. So we're doing this in order of priority. So our current certified free cash is $11,248,266. But we have an obligation, and this is our primary first obligation that we have to take out of that $11 million is the cannabis settlement total. Okay, so that drops our remaining balance of free cash down to $6,119,257.56. Okay. After that, in the cannabis is complete, that's on the warrant for moving forward and closing out that chapter. Number two, as far as priorities, again, are our unpaid obligations. Unfortunately, we have approximately $52,000 in unpaid bills from last year. about $6,000 from the fire department and the remaining from public works. So typically unpaid bills are around $2,000. And that number is still fluctuating. That's why I was so late, is that we're trying to get as close to the accurate numbers as we can for you. The second part of number 2 for our responsibilities and making sure that we set aside money for is the procurement audit obligations. The number unfortunately is getting closer and closer to $1 million, but I'm putting a placeholder of $1 million as of right now. So our auditors have identified probably 800,000 already, but they don't know if it is something that the town is obligated or if it is something different. And they're still looking at other projects and evaluating. So we don't know, and it may be differ for each project that they are evaluating, whether or not it was done appropriately or not. So we have to set aside at least $1 million in case we are obligated for that.
We have the option of borrowing to meet.
No, you cannot for prior year bill, for those kinds of things. No. But again, it's dependent upon the little details of what, that the auditor will put in the report for us, okay? Of what really are our obligations versus if they're not and there's something else, okay?
That's a very complicated wicket.
It is.
But this is the result or the pending result of the audit that we had done internally.
Right, and that's reviewing the public works, CPC, as well as affordable housing trust projects, primarily prosperity way project. The only one that they have done right now actually is one project out of 3 that they're reviewing for DPW. And they found them over 800,000 wrong.
So these are contracts that we already signed.
No, so that's where the nuance is. I did not sign them, the town manager did not sign them, staff did.
Okay, so it was a discrepancy in the way business operates.
And the auditors will identify if those were legal or not, and who has the obligation for that. Of making whole for the contractors, because those bills have yet to be paid. And that's how the audit was found, was that I looked at them, I didn't see any process that was familiar to me. And so I wanted to make sure that this was something that I was right on or not, and
So
so.
this is a placeholder.
This is a placeholder.
Just in case.
That's correct,
Everything as it all washes through.
yes,
But it could go higher.
it can.
And this is the best $50,000.
I originally,
Ever authorized.
yeah, we got another $46,000 yesterday that we found.
Wow.
That is an error. I mean, you're talking about $800,000.
That was signed by staff, not the town manager, and change orders, other things. And so again, the procurement could be, that's what they're looking at in detailing for me, is that the procurement could be one number, but all the number of change orders pushed us over a threshold, or that other projects were wrapped in, and that it shouldn't have been done that way. And so they're looking at all of the legalities of how the process was, and they're only on one project. Right now.
There'll be a full report.
There will be a full
I
report.
know that, I know that.
Changing
Everything's-
the knot, basically.
But
Yes.
unfortunately, the knot's gonna land in the taxpayer's lap.
Oh,
That-
don't.
we don't know that.
Well,
Because the way that Massachusetts general law, and I don't want to get too much because we'll have our time, but the way that Massachusetts general law states is that sometimes the contractors are obligated to review all of those and make sure that all of the signatures, and then the project manager also. So if there's a project manager that's involved, they also have liability associated or signed to them. So the auditor is going to determine who actually is liable, okay? But this is just a placeholder, because if we are obligated, then we have to have some type of funds to sustain that. Okay,
I'm sorry,
Yep.
do you have any timeline on the report at this point? We really don't.
we don't, we're hoping that, yeah, they know that we've been meeting with them almost on a daily basis. And having detailed conversations and getting them different information and, yeah, so. Okay. All right. So moving forward now, so these next line items in the free cash is setting aside money for our standard annual special articles. One for the Southern Berkshire Ambulance, and this year's assessment that or request is for 414,676, which the Southern Berkshire Ambulance is here to explain later in their agenda item. We typically set aside 40,000 for unemployment. We have the vocational schools assessment of approximately 150,000. And then we have a collective bargaining line item of 140,000 for this prior year or this current year for the fire department. So that's bringing down the free cash to $4,322,039.11. So then we're going to the next line where it is all of the things that were teased out of the general operating and put into a new special article that yet to be determined if they're individually or if they're going to be pulled out in one and then taken individually. But I've set aside actually $75,000 for Housatonic Waterworks legal costs. I have set aside the 30,000 and the 23,000 for the leases of the VFW and the American Legion. Then the lifeguards and the skate park monitor, as well as the co-responder, which was not in the original budget recommendations, but because it was identified by your March 19th meeting as important that we've set aside in the free cash designation of the special article of 100,000. So that gives us a remaining balance of $4,075,11. And just as a reminder on these slides, and I'll put these up tonight, but the items with the asterisks are all the ones that are contingent upon the ballot question passing. Okay, and we'll get into that. So item 5 is now, because we've gone through our obligations, and we have a remaining balance of 4 million. Now is the, where on March 19th, you had agreed or, identified that $2 million would be set aside to offset the FY27 budget. So we're taking that out, and now that leaves us with a little over $2 million. We also have 2 citizen petitioned articles that we would be obligated to pay in some capacity. It shouldn't be borrowed because we really don't have any borrowing capacity. So this would be through free cash. And the first is the ambulances, subsidizing 2 ambulances for Southern Berkshire Ambulance at 490,000, and then a residential tax exemption implementation article for $75,000. Yes.
Is that citizens petition for 490 in addition to the,
Yes,
so they're asking for close to $1 million?
yes, they are.
That's a big number.
Yeah.
You can have that discussion on.
We're all sitting here tonight.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then it leaves us with a remaining balance of $1,435,075.11. Okay, so now we haven't even gotten to capital, so now we're getting into capital. So there's 2 options. One, if the petition articles pass, we're left with the $1.4 million. If the petition articles fail, that opens up $500 and some thousand that we can utilize for capital. So I created 2 different option scenarios for the capital, okay? And there is a free cash line item for capital, and then the service enhancements, okay, that we'll talk about. So service so this is a breakdown. Some items in capital are not just free cash, okay, and those will not be affected in any way. They are isolated, they will get done if it passes at town meeting for capital, okay? So there's capital stabilization, items, and we'll get into the breakdown. Then there is a grant, and then there's chapter 90. Those are isolated from free cash completely. And the same thing with enterprise. But you'll see the difference, and you can see the difference here between the two slides of if the petition article passes, we have less, obviously, capacity in the free cash than we don't. Okay, so now the capital project. So we have been trimmed down to what is before you. I gave you the full breakdown in the memo, so you can see actually what was requested versus what I am shifting over to adjusted recommendations, and then also adding in, if the petition articles fail, what would those items be that we could pull in? So the crosswalk and install, so I'm gonna go at the top. The crosswalk install and replace of 5 locations, that will be in a separate slide, and I'll show you because we never got to the DPW capital items yet, and that I will talk about that. But the South Main Street intersection is included in that 5 locations, okay? So that's why it is very important that I actually place that in the chapter 90 section of paying for it versus being dependent upon the free cash, because it will get done and it is a priority of the community. The master plan also is included in that, that my recommended budget for whether the petition article passes or does not. It is very important for economic development and planning purposes for the community moving forward. The online permitting software as well, and the upgrades to the assessor software, and then the police cruiser. Those are all within those 4 items are within the actual free cash associated payments, okay? The town building water infiltration testing, I have a quote, that is the number 130, I had a placeholder originally for 150,000, they came in at 135. This is to test the water infiltration of the buildings, of 3 buildings. Town Hall, Mason Library, and the fire station. The fire station's a critical need, so because we do know that there is water coming into the building from the roof. And these are very specific, it's a very specific company that does this. That's what they do for a living, basically. So, and I've used them in the past and they are ready to go when we have the money. So again, this is very important to get it done, because if we have water coming into the building, then our assets are actually deteriorating at a faster rate. So we need to know where it's coming in, what the cause, what the issues are, what kind of damage it is. So there will be a full analysis of the water testing for these buildings.
Can you just repeat the 3 buildings?
It is, this building, Town Hall, Mason Library, as well as the fire station.
Great Barrington Fire Station?
Yes.
That's great, thank you.
Yes, and this, because it is very important to understand what is happening with our assets, very large and very expensive assets. And for our buildings, I am proposing it be paid out of capital stabilization. So it actually gets done. Then the Brush Hill Road culvert, that is a grant, so that is not affiliated with free cash. It will get done, so it's moving forward. There's roadway improvements, we can get into that as well, in another slide. And that is being paid out of chapter 90. That's for pavements and other types of improvements. And then the same thing with roadwork engineering of 550,000. That actually, on the slide, it's hard to decipher, but in the actual project slide, you'll see the separation. I'm proposing having it paid out of capital stabilization and chapter 90 funds. So there's 2 different funding sources to get to that 550. Okay, that's why it's got 2 different color codes on it. Okay, so here we go into the slide. So now we're into DPW. This is what we never got to previously.
So that's in our original book?
This is in your original book.
Oh, okay.
So as I mentioned before, this is in DPW, it's towards the back. Towards the back. It's in the middle, it's maybe in the middle. It's kind of in the middle. It is the green tab.
Now we've got to find.
Which tab?
Three. Green. And then it's kind of in the middle.
Oh, tab 3 is.
The one with a lot of photos.
Yeah, we're gonna start with the crosswalk install.
Oh, God.
So should we be looking for this exact image?
There is, I mean, no, it's a different type. I'm so sorry.
That's what I mean, I like those images. But. This,
But DPW highway,
oh,
You want what?
we're looking for DPW highway.
It's after the bridges. It's after Cottage Street and Bridge Street Bridge.
It's after Bridge Street Bridge.
Yes,
Bridge.
so which has like a bunch of photos. Or high and bond.
That's
Right after, yeah.
Okay, after
Okay.
the green.
And you'll see a cover page that says 2531 capital request form. And it says traffic signals, but it's not really.
2731, is that what we're looking for?
Well, they're hard to tell because they all have the same cover sheet. It's just the details of it.
Tied and long.
Right after.
After the.
Yes, before the culvert.
Got it. Got it.
This isn't, this isn't, so it's.
It says traffic signals, but it's not really traffic signals. This is actually crosswalks install and replace.
Oh, so no, I.
It was titled incorrectly.
No, you're a better statement from Ryan, and he should.
Bridge Street East, is that the Bridge Street East?
Yeah.
Oh, dear God. Did you find it, Michelle?
Whoever gets it first.
That's it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can get you there.
Oh, we looking at.
Oh, you have to be excited.
Right, it's after that, Garfield, after.
After. Where'd you find it?
Oh, it's about, yeah, it's really.
Keep turning.
It's like you.
Oh, I know, I thought I was being smart too.
What's that one say?
There's bridges.
Okay.
Does it say traffic signal under bridges?
Is it before Shaw Street or?
No.
Shop Bridge.
Shaw Bridge.
Traffic signals. More traffic signals.
Yes, please.
So. There's.
It's in the,
Traffic signals.
it's in the DPW section.
It is in the DPW section.
Okay.
All right.
Get there.
Change to bridges is very.
It's after Shaw Bridge.
Traffic signals.
Yeah.
It's to change.
It's, yes, traffic.
I said it was.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go through it.
I'm gonna be so.
What are you gonna do without?
Ann gets
Yes.
excused.
She does. She gets the
It's on her hand.
You can't leave this committee.
I'll come in and just help you.
Should be the official page turner.
I know. I'm right, you're ahead of the game.
Well, that's one page and then we go into brush and we go into the toilet.
Oh, Eric, did you switch? the pages? Eric's just sitting back with a kid when it's school.
It's in there somewhere, but I'm just gonna read the slide.
Then you. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Anne, high five.
Well, I'm on the page.
This is traffic.
Yeah, it's traffic, it's,
Doesn't
I know.
attach to any photographs or anything else, so.
There is photographs in the later, if you, but we're gonna go
Okay.
through it, so there's 5 intersections for this request, and this request is going through chapter 90 funds, that's the funding source, so it is not free cash dedicated in any way, it will get done, so there's 5 intersections for crosswalk replacements, that includes also lighting, that's why traffic signals is listed in there. It's about flashings, it's speed, traffic speed, volume, all of that kind of stuff, so. There's Main Street at Reed Street location. There is North Plain Road and Main Street in Housatonic. There's Bridge Street at Youth Building. Then Main Street at Rosetta Street. And then Pleasant Street at Front Street in Housatonic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rossiter, thank you. Still learning, thank you.
you are. You're still.
I am still.
So is this Main Street just at Rossiter?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Okay, so this is gonna improve the pedestrian safety, the crossing walks, replacing the flashing beacons at the locations. There's gonna be, just a bunch of different upgrades. We're actually already doing some minor ones of including, painting on for Main Street and Reed on South Main Street area at that intersection where we had the accident earlier this year. DPW and the police department are already working on some other types of very low cost traffic mitigation of literally painting slow speed down on the road. So things like that, but this is to enhance the actual crosswalks themselves. So this is money set aside by chapter 90. Yes, sir.
Set a question. Heading down to Plain Road,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
crosswalk thing was gone.
Yep.
Why?
I don't know the answer to that, but this is one of those locations that is in the improvements, but they're working on it right now. DPW and police are working on that intersection right now and making some, like I said, minor but very impactful adjustments. I have interim DPW Superintendent Chief Storty, former Chief Storty, helping us on with those improvements.
And if I just made request, because I'm down there a lot, that there is that, to me, that in the middle of the road keeps flying through.
It is very fast.
I think it needs to be put back.
Yeah.
Or something like it.
Yes, thank you.
I've got a question.
Yes.
When, maybe this will throw everything into another level, but the one that the pedestrian was killed.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Right, right. And obviously we started a crosswalk there because years ago, another
Mhm.
woman was crossing the street and got killed there. So my question is, rather than just beef it up, does it need to be moved down where, I mean, it's convenient where it is, except people are getting killed. So then it's not really that convenient. So I'm wondering if there is any way that could be rethought,
Yeah, there is design work, and there has been efforts to redesign that area, including additional sidewalks to include onto the housing development on the same side as where the grocery stores and other services are. So there, and looking at the actual from the circle area and downward. So that project and Complete Streets project has been actually developing. And I believe that there is in the engineering project section in my recommendations, part of that project of the Complete Streets, that we're going to continue that effort. So we're continuing to fund that effort. But until we can identify and have the data and having engineers identify where the proper location is for the crosswalk, I don't know how that was placed, why it was determined in that location. I don't have knowledge of any of that.
I mean, I think many of us here remember the first time somebody was killed there, and then they put that crosswalk in, maybe they were just, because I don't think there was a crosswalk there, and then they put one in after that tragedy. And so it's been working until it had, well, I don't know how long it's been working, but 2 deaths in one crosswalk. And it seems that there's a design flaw in where it is.
Right, and it may be, and this is where the engineers, it's important to actually identify also the strategies that are implemented prior to arriving to the crosswalk coming from Sheffield area, because there is really no notice that you're coming up to a 35 mile an hour or 30 mile an hour zone. It literally comes up right up on you. So that's what we're looking at, is actually identifying markings on the pavement and get people to slow down, and maybe have these small, very cost-effective measures. I mean, when you see even like 95 on the Beltway and you're like, oh, I'm in the right lane to go to the direction that I want, right? That's what we're trying to do here, is coming up to a pedestrian area or some type of notification. And that's what the police and DPW are looking at right now. They have the stencils, they're ready to go when it's ready to be able to
But it
paint.
seems
on
like
the
good
pavement.
money, perhaps good money after bad. It could be. I mean, anything to help.
That's why this is in the chapter 90 funds, is that
Okay.
we're looking, we need to fund it, we need to make sure that we're doing the right things appropriately, and that we're not being neglectful. We're putting money into trying to solve a problem,
Okay,
okay? We know it's a problem,
yeah.
yes. Any other questions on this capital item?
Yes, it popped out in my head, there was something, thinking about that, did have something.
So moving forward.
Oh, thank you. Well, I know we have these international type signs there that just show people walking. I would really like to think something happen, but I wouldn't mind the good old fashioned sign saying pedestrian in the crosswalk. That tells it all.
Okay.
Instead of just, I even have the pictures, I mean, international stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think one of them can't avoid it either.
Garfield, who's gonna read it at 45?
Well,
Let's try to keep it to the budget here. Let's not design crosswalks. We have a ton of fun on it.
I think, Frank.
Let's order.
Noted, I will take note of that, thank you. Right, I don't know where this is in the budget book, so I think I'm just gonna go through it, and then if you wanna review it later, and just know the slides will be up, so then you can refer to it later.
Fine.
Okay, so like I had mentioned, the water infiltration study, this is actually gonna be, I'm proposing having it funded through the capital stabilization. I'm sorry, the slide is not updated. It is really officially 135,450. Before I post these slides, I will make that correction, so you have it accurate, so you can follow with your book, okay? But your book will say 150, because I didn't have the actual quote yet at the time. It's gonna cover 3 buildings, Mason Library, Town Hall, and the fire station. And it will reveal any leaks coming from the exterior, and also assessing the future larger capital investments that we need to make for the facilities, whether it's roof repairs, any masonry work, other things like that, that could have been impacted over time from the water infiltrating. Okay.
I just asked a little question here. For one thing, I was not gonna talk, and I thought of it. But do we have to take low bids on that, like we do sidewalks, and then
Not-
we get a
Yep.
good repair that's gonna like?
Well, for repairs, yes, we do have to go out for bid, but not for engineering services. Okay, so I have somebody from the East Coast that I had them give me a quote. I trust them. They've done fire stations already. They have done libraries, and they have done town halls. So they know how to work a municipal budget as well, and also working on historic structures is very important. They recognize and know where to look, how to go inside the building versus exterior, looking for all of those types of little nuances. And also not just knowing how to do that, but knowing how to provide us a report that we can work with. It's not just doing the work. I need real paper guiding us. And so we can all then know what the real impacts are. So when they do their reports, they are literally showing pictures, and it's very detailed. So this is worth every penny, especially for 3 buildings. They're going to actually pull in their entire team and have it all planned out so they can get it pounded out in like 3 days. And, it's gonna be, they've already got the operation all mapped out for us. So. You have any questions there?
Not yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. It's a very fascinating process though, to see it actually happen. So. Okay, any other questions on this project? Okay. All right, this item is in my, if the petition article does not pass. This is a manhole area in Pearl Street. There is actually a large pipe that actual children can be able to access. The drain, it's an open drainage connection area, that has been identified. It's around $22,000 to enclose that drainage area and make sure it's, that it's safe, so
And what's the cost? I can't.
22,000.
Oh, I see that, I see it.
Yep. And that would be paid out of free cash. The next is the grant, community culvert grant at Brush Hill Road at $777,500. Again, this is not impacting free cash. This is not going to be this will happen whether a petition article or a ballot question passes or fails or whatever the details are. This is a grant affiliated project, so it will move forward, if it's approved at town meeting. And there's no cost to the taxpayers for this. Okay. The next is, back over to DPW highway road improvements. Priority number 2 is all of the crack sealing, fog sealing, chip sealing, and line stripping. So it all is being recommended that is chapter 90 so that our roads can be repaired. So it's $410,000 out of chapter 90 funds that will be put towards our road repairs. Okay, so that is maintained. So it won't be impacted this year. Next is engineering. So again, this is going back to Madonna, where you said that a larger plan in engineering and thinking it through. This actually funds the South Main Street tip project, so it can continue forward, looking at the infrastructure, looking at pedestrian safety and connectivity, targeting people from the housing to the actual services area, and looking at the development. So it continues that effort and moving forward, okay? And then the second part of that project, in the 550,000, and it will be paid out of chapter 90 in capital stabilization. So it's not dependent upon whether the ballot question or petition article passes, fails, or anything. It is being funded by an area that is not going to be impacted. Okay. So the second location is at Route 183 at Park Street, the TIP project over there. Making sure that we can continue that effort so we can be qualified for larger project money. Okay.
Set timer over the arrows there. Where that came from.
I don't know where that came from.
I'm struggling with yours.
Steve, are you timing?
No, I'm not.
Are you timing? Where that came from?
I don't even, I was afraid to touch it.
What about the minute?
I don't know.
Isn't that little line up top there minimize button? No,
Yeah.
no.
I didn't even touch it. Okay,
All right.
all right.
Damn, you're
I
on
thought Steve was.
You're not.
Thanks, Aaron. All right, so yeah, so it's 2 items out of the total that was requested. I am recommending 2 items, the 183 tip project and the South Main Street project, okay? All right, now into service enhancements. We did talk about this a little bit at a previous meeting. There are 2 sections. One, if the petition article passes, and then if the petition article fails. These are my recommendations moving forward. Arts and culture celebrations. That is what I talked about with the events, with the celebrations at the gazebo, and then also additional arts and culture feed money for both Housatonic as well as Great Barrington downtown area. So I'm recommending $25,000. That would cover the 16 for the special event, for the celebrations, and then 5,000 for the chief possibly, or a quasi of whatever, and he'll have some money available, and then additional funds for additional projects and events, so we can keep the economic development component going, so we have new revenue, making sure our local receipts for the foods, the meals tax, as well as the hotel motel tax are being encouraged, that people can come here, spend money, and then we can get a percentage off. So we need to make sure that there is some type of investment so we can see a larger return. The health and water quality intern, that was something that I do feel is necessary. It would be testing all the water locations at lakes, Manfield, and other rivers and other areas and water field sources, and then also assisting with the health department for other things and conservation. So that is something, if the petition article fails, that I feel is very important, that I'm recommending be put in for a young person that could assist with those types of programs. The fire department washer and dryer for 2,000 if the petition article fails. Then professional development, as I mentioned prior to, I have partnered with Suffolk University and MMA, the Massachusetts Municipal Association. We are slated to be the host of the Suffolk Program College Master's Program. And this is the to at least pay for a portion of our for, I believe it is up to, if the petition article passes, 1,250 would fund approximately 5 employees. And then if we can, or 4 employees, excuse me, and then if the petition article fails, then we can actually increase it to approximately 8 to 10 people, depending on the cost at the time that it is implemented. So this would be for the fall of 27, but we have to pay for it prior to the fiscal 27 ending. So this would be the money for it. And then the computer replacement, I am recommending that stay for either scenario. Okay, so now we're going into the ballot question. Yes.
So if the petition articles pass, will we have no water testing or?
It'll be done through a contracted service that is done at minimal amounts, and so, and then we have to, I think Rebecca goes, or the contracted service then drives it up and it's being taken away. So this would be somebody that could do all of it. I'm not versed in it 100%, but this would pay for somebody to do everything that we needed to be done and then some. Okay.
Liz, before you move on, how much do you have left so I can make sure the ambulance gets on tonight?
Not that much, actually.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
I won't ask questions.
Okay.
Well, the question, I agree with you getting the ambulance discussion, but have I missed the discussion of the Shaw Bridge rehabilitation? When is that?
That is not happening.
Okay, so we're just removing that.
That is, we can't afford it.
Which bridge?
But that being said, there is opportunities for that to be funded through state options, okay? So I'm working with, Rep. Davis and Senator Mark in identifying and spearheading, so Shaw Bridge and all of those other components, and Street Bridge, and all of those can be eligible for other types of funding.
I fully appreciate that, and I don't want us to move on, but we had all these materials in the binder about the need for the bridge rehab.
Right.
Given our history on bridges, I'm not sure I'm completely comfortable with just sort of saying.
Right, but,
Skip it.
right, but at the same time.
I get the math, yeah.
Right, this is my recommendation, and you guys can take it or leave
Right,
it, but you only have.
I just want to make sure I wasn't having a senior moment and be
Nope.
discussing Shaw Bridge and I just forgot about it. Okay,
Nope.
All right,
We
okay.
only have $320,000 in free
All
cash,
right, understood.
and we'll get to that, okay?
All right.
Yeah. So, yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Living between that bridge and the sinkhole we have now. So you're saying that bridge isn't going to be the Shaw Bridge, which is over the Williams River, which is in terrible condition. Absolutely, and I read that after the sinkhole, I really studied the condition of the Shaw Bridge. And that's scary. I know the money, so is this going to be aggressively looked at?
That's Chip, Liz is looking at it and other sources.
But then conversely, and I've brought this up before, and I brought it up regarding the divisions, the one over the Housatonic are the overweighted trucks, which that's only a 29-ton weight limit. I have followed trucks going over the Division Street Bridge over the Housatonic, fully loaded gravel trucks that are 36 tons going over the Shaw Bridge. I raised a warning on the Division Street Bridge, and we have a sinkhole there and it's closed. That Shaw Bridge isn't going to be able to withstand the traffic, because now they're detouring over. That's really scary. It's nothing, I know, I realize it's a matter of money. But after what happened with the Division Street Bridge over the Housatonic, hey, we get sued, you know. And we came dangerously close.
Yeah, Steve, I think I completely agree with Michelle, but I do agree that we have our ambulance team here and we should get to them, maybe circle back.
But we have at least 2 more meetings, so, yeah.
Yeah.
At least.
Okay, so going back to your decision number 3, which you had postponed to tonight as ballot questions. So this is just a reminder to you, this slide, is that we have actually 3 options, okay? We have option A, which is a Proposition 2.5 override, versus option B, which is debt exclusions, versus option C is actually placing both A and B on the ballot and seeing if both passes or one passes versus another. It is an option to explore, and so therefore that is a decision as the 2 board members that you need to, actually the select board, because they identify what is on the ballot. That you have to vote on supporting it or not, that's something that you need to talk about. So we're gonna go into that off right now.
Oh, that's also on tomorrow night's agenda.
It is. Okay, so option A, is if the ballot passes, whether it be a debt exclusion or an override, okay? If the ballot question passes, and this gets a little complicated. And if the petitioned articles at 565 passes, then we can actually have, after all of the other items, the discretionary services, which is the lifeguards and the skate park monitor, the Housatonic Waterworks, and all the other items within there, the capital projects of 268, the service enhancements, and also funding the special article for the ambulance at 414. Then we'll have a remaining balance of free cash, which is okay, but it's not great, but it's still, we will have a comfort zone of a little over $1 million, okay? Now, if the petition article fails but the ballot passes, this slide will show you what our remaining balance is if you do go with the recommendations that I am placing before you tonight, okay? Now, if the ballot fails, whether it be A or B, I mean, whether it be the 2.5% or the debt exclusion, you'll see here that we will not be able to actually afford any of these items because we will have to omit it in order to pay off the balance, because we'll have to use all of the money to fund the $2 million from the ballot question that failed to put into paying for the service, but we will not be able to afford the discretionary services. We will not be able to have any of the capital projects out of free cash, okay? Chapter 90, capital stabilization, that's all separate. But the free cash dependent capital projects, there will not be any, no service enhancements, and we will also not be able to afford funding the request from the ambulance of 414. Okay. So that remains, and then it also provides us only $171,000 left in our free cash. So I want to just make sure that you're aware that it's dropping us into I mean, we're in the danger zone even in this scenario, but this is extremely dangerous. Okay, you really should not be under, we should not be under 2 million. We've already had this discussion. We should not be under $2 to $3 million in leftover free cash every year. We should have that in our banks as a safety zone. Now we're getting into like a zero, close to zero. We have no capacity. So I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of the magnitude of making sure that if we do a ballot question, that this is what happens if we don't, if it fails or if it passes. Okay, I'm not trying to scare anyone. I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of what we would have to do. Okay. Or I'd have to go back and actually like just we'd have to close things down. Okay. So, all right. Do you want to?
ask a question?
Yes.
First off, the slides.
Yes.
Those slides, you're going to have them on the
Yes.
website.
As soon as I fix that one slide and then I'll put it up tonight. Yep.
Okay, all right, that being said. How much do we need? I'm watching the slides, I'm looking at binder.
Yeah,
You say 565,000
that's for that is for the petitioned articles.
for the petition articles, okay.
Yep.
All right. Like I said, when I brought up the 2 million, that night we were doing it, we had to give the town manager a number to work with. That's the only reason why I agreed to it.
Yes.
Okay, because I've been very vocal about this. I won't support a Prop 2.5. I won't. So is there an opportunity to, I know you're not gonna like this, cut more.
You can cut as much
That's
as
it right
you
there.
need to.
No, yeah.
Right.
Procedurally.
Yeah, we're not there,
Yes.
we're not there to ask her yet, that probably.
Right,
Margaret's
right,
question.
right.
If there's a majority of the people ask the town manager to cut more, they can, but now you're getting into services, you're getting into things that we had said we did want to cut.
But also, let's not add more. You know, adding, and, I mean, we're not having a bridge repaired, now, so. I'm just wondering
Yeah, we'll be
procedurally,
working on it.
Right.
you have what
Yeah.
the, okay.
So the operating there isn't anything being added in the operating. So
Mhm.
let me just remind you that that's where we'd have to actually cut the additional 2 million out of. Okay, so all of the discretionary stuff and all of those extras would come out of the 2 million, but we would still need to come up with additional funds. So I'm just, yeah.
That would be employees, right, staffing
Mm-hmm.
and closing down buildings, our services.
Yeah, there's really nothing left.
Let's go.
And just as a reminder, if I lay off positions, we still actually have to boost up our unemployment for 50% of their wages for 26, at minimum of 26 weeks. So it would only recover about half. So we'd have to double the amount of employees cut in order to recoup the actual amount.
And I'm not advocating for laying anybody.
No,
I went
No, I
down
don't.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah,
It's called being stuck in the wrong thing, purpose.
yeah, but some of the hard place here, like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to hype on it again.
Yep.
We'll discuss it, the procurement thing. That's really got me going.
Yeah.
So,
let's go to the ambulance first. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yes.
And then you were gonna do wastewater, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Liz needs a break.
I'm gonna get a drink.
Are they sitting on?
They're gonna sit over here.
Want us here or you can?
Oh, if you want to go there,
We can sit here, just as we.
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, thank you for having us here. We've enjoyed waiting. To save some time, I had a list of 7 things, which was only gonna take me a couple of minutes, and then narrow it down to 1. That I just want to say to you folks this evening. For the first time, and this is my 5th presentation, for the first time in 5 years, I can say to you, with confidence that this is the first time we come to you fully staffed. We have no openings and we are fully staffed, which means we can put more rigs on the road, we can provide a little better, we can provide some better coverage. And also do some more transports and inter-facility transports, which generates income for us. So, with that being said, I'm gonna turn this next part over to Pat, who's our CFO. And he's gonna explain the budget for you.
All right, I've been told to keep it at 10 minutes, so I'm gonna not go through every slide. I'm just gonna do a quick summary because I want to leave some time to talk about the proposed citizens petition. Ambulance service has three revenue streams. It has 911, which is what we provide for you and 6 other towns. It has paramedic intercept, which is where, as the only paramedic service south of Lee and Lenox, it's where it, you know, New Marlboro or some other town only has a basic and they have a really serious sick patient, we go and intervene with that fly car that we bought. And the third is the support that we give to Fairview Hospital, which really is kind of a linchpin of service between Great Barrington and hospitals with more capabilities elsewhere in the state or region. Okay. You know, I've been at this for 9 months now, and I gotta tell you, I'm worried. What we're up against is this. You have a federal government that has impacted us to the tune of -10% on Medicaid and -10% on Medicare. These cuts are nothing we can control, and they're impacting us. We have a situation where, and I applaud absolutely. I want to say this out loud for everybody. I'm a big fan of Lee Davis's and all the work she's doing on EMS, but they're not coming to save us this year. All right. What we face is a federal and state government that haven't recognized this as an essential service. And meanwhile, we have a situation where every time somebody turns 65, the amount of revenue we get for an ambulance trip basically cuts in half if they have private insurance. Private insurance pays the most, and Medicare for elderly pays the middle, and Medicaid for poor people pays the least. So as our communities age, we actually get less per trip. All right, and for every 10 years that go by, our communities are aging by 5 because of the mix of people who live here. There's no easy way to solve that. And in fact, just in the last 6 months, when I did the budget that we reviewed in November, I was projecting about $1.7 million in ambulance revenue. I have revised that budget down to 1.5 million in revenue. Now, luckily, this guy, Kevin, has done such a good job at staffing that our overtime costs have come down. And so a lot of that is offset by actually being fully staffed because the cost structure changes. It's not all negative. We've done actually a pretty good job as a team on donations. Donations were up 400% in the second half of the year versus the first half. We did that through moving to 2 mailers. We're now for this year moving to 3 mailers. We're doing a couple of events. If you're free Saturday night, come to Taggart House. You might have seen that. We're also looking for new revenue streams. You might have saw in the paper that we made the case that Stockbridge should have been paying into the 9/11 system because they used it for the Houstonic area of Stockbridge for the last 10 years. And give that select board credit, they agreed. And not only did they fund the 25,000, but they actually funded another 25,000 for ambulances. Just today, we got a 25,000 donation from a major donor in Stockbridge. So we're trying to offset some of what is kind of bad news with some other things. But I want to just emphasize that 60% of our budget is insurance and is completely out of our control. Now, this isn't an organization that is in such dire straits that there's any risk to going out of business. But what would happen if revenue falls short is simple. We would go from 3 ambulances during the day and 2 ambulances at night to 2 ambulances during some days and potentially 1 ambulance during some nights. There's no other way to modify a budget that is over 70% labor than to cut your labor costs if you run into trouble. And I don't have any good answers to this. And I don't have any good answers to the longer term structural problem. You've got a situation where 65 and older folks use the ambulance twice as often as 55 and older, who use it twice as often as 45 and older. So over the next 5-10 years, as our populations age, we're gonna see increased demand for ambulance service. And my concern around sort of level funding ambulance in a multi-year contract is simple. We don't know when that's gonna happen around here. We're already seeing this payer mix shift. Just in the last 3 months, 6 months, compared to the prior year. You've seen Medicare go from 50% to 56%. And remember, every time that happens, we lose half the revenue for that. So I just want to say this is a really complex set of moving parts. It's been suggested that we work with a member or members of the finance committee and select board. You know, this, I've given you a summary of the budget here. I can give anybody who wants it a full briefing on the budget. Yeah, we want to be your partners. We recognize this is a shared service. This is really a municipal service. All right, this structure is a nonprofit. This nonprofit structure helps. We're raising a lot of money that would otherwise be in these assessments. Now let's just address the question of the citizens petition. We don't care. We gave, now I say that in a positive way. We gave every one of your partner towns and you a proposal that said we need an operating assessment because of the reasons I just explained, and we need to pay for basically the loan on 80% of the ambulances. All right, we'll raise a couple $100,000 for the ambulances, and we'll raise $150,000 for operating. All right, so we're basically committing to raise at least 350 grand. If it's more, even better. All right. So what we did is we went to all the towns and we said, just help us make the payments. So, you know, we'll put in a big chunk of money and you help us make the payments. Now, in a meeting, it was suggested to us, maybe a better way for operating versus capital for you guys, that you might want to consider, you know, using free cash to pay for your share of the ambulances outright, rather than what we proposed, which was just basically make the payments for 5 years. All right. We don't care whether you do it the make the payments way, because I was looking at the screen there thinking all these things you're not going to be able to do because of us. That was not our intent. All right. Our intent is real simple, to give you two choices, which we encourage you to make. So the 414 assessment on operating had a second assessment in the proposal that we made to you both in November and in March, which was 462 total, and involved basically starting to make payments whenever the ambulances get delivered. Not for the full year, just if we take it in delivery in February, you'll start paying in February. We got to pay for them somehow. Now, if you'd rather do it with the suggested way of using a capital, a citizen's warrant for a free cash allocation, happy to do it that way too. That is entirely your decision. And as long as we have some way to pay for the ambulances, either by making the payments with us or taking out of your free cash, it's totally, Switzerland is totally neutral to us. And based on the presentation, I can see why many of you might come to the conclusion it might be better to just add 48 grand in ambulance payments back in and eliminate the $490,000 citizens petition. That is, my personal opinion. I would have to consult with the board, obviously, our board, but my personal opinion is Switzerland agnostics. It's really completely up to you and your other priorities and how you want to balance your operating budget, which would go up by 48 grand, versus your free cash, which obviously would take a big hit based on what I saw tonight.
Let me ask one question, then I want Liz to weigh in on that too. Are all of the towns that we service being asked to pay capital?
Every one of them, and everyone has agreed. We still have an open question with Monterey. We haven't gotten the word back from Monterey.
Steve, this is the first year, and we told you last year when we were here at this, a year ago at this time. In the past 4 years, we've only put in and asked you folks for an operations budget. This year, we're asking for capital, and it's the first time we've done it, but it's the first time that we have really had to do it. With the operations, we've got our staffing up to where it needs to be. Now we need to get our infrastructure and capital up to where we would like it to be. And the first thing on our list is to replace some ambulances.
And I'll add this, that what I'm frankly expecting to try to do is you'll notice that there's $154,000 operating loss on this cover sheet. Okay, that basically includes about $90,000, I'm sorry, about $90,000 in depreciation. If we don't capture depreciation, then 4 or 5 years down the road, we're in the same position, which is there's no money to pay for the next round. Because these things get tons of miles added to them and they're beat, and I'm talking about the analysis. And so I'm expecting to try to exceed expectations on fundraising to try to close that operating and depreciation deficit here. We're working really hard to try to use the benefits of being a nonprofit to try to offset the cost of all the towns, because everybody's saying the same thing to us. I mean, similar things than what we're hearing from the other.
Do you want to talk about the key choices?
For,
Whether using free cash or payments or any of this, but either you want to.
no, we can talk about it, and again, it's similar to what my slides mentioned, is that, if there's a ballot question, then, or not, we'd have to, the equation is that either you make the decision of whether you want to fund the service at whatever cost, and I will figure that out. But it's gonna impact if a ballot question is not placed or it's not passed, then, and you say that this specific number associated with the ambulance has to be approved, then I have to make the shift in the operating general fund. So regardless whether it's 414 or 460 something, it's gonna have to be made up from the operating. Okay,
The only other thing I would add, and I've listened to you folks, I'd say this a couple of times, and when I was here last week at a meeting, it was said over and over and over again that you don't want to do anything that affects staff. If we don't get close to what we're asking for, or, even a little less, staffing is the only place that we can cut back. And we don't want to do that, obviously, especially since we just got ourselves up to where we want to be. But staffing would be the first place that we would cut back. What happens? The number of rigs on the road goes down, the level of service goes down. Response times go up.
So I appreciate the presentation and I appreciate this packet, although I haven't had time to go through it, and so I intend to thoroughly. I understand that a lot of folks, struggling with budgets, but 5 years now, I feel like each year you come back with a request of a 30% increase.
Yeah.
And I understand, but we saw the budget numbers up there on all the other towns, and whether the insurance goes up 8, 10, yet town hall just had to take a hit for -6% of the selected budget. So I understand, read the article from last week's, and I don't want to get into the statements from there, but at a certain point, we have to have some consistency in the budget. We know you guys save lives, there's no question there. But at a certain point, the taxpayers need to understand, we just need to know why every year we got a 40%. Now, and maybe I remembered it wrong, I attend a lot of meetings, don't have all my notes here, but I feel like the discussion last year was that your infrastructure was solid, it was staffing that was bad. And now this year we got staffing's up to par, which is fantastic, and I do see you guys out there, but now we need 2 new vehicles. And I understand, same as police officers, they come and they go, you guys do put a lot of miles on it. But I just feel like at some point, we can't have you guys coming here every year and stuck in this place where, I think it was one of the first years, you have no choice but to pay for this. We have no, and at a certain point that we do have to make a drastic decision. We do have to come up with a different plan or whatever, bid it out. There has to be, we would have to go to a different plan because we just can't afford 30% increases and then citizen petitions for 40%. And as we all know, I have family members that do this for a living, right? In bigger cities, all that stuff. So I'm not trying to undermine anything that you do. It's just the fact of this position that we're in with financing in general and all these different places, our police department, our fire department have all had to take a hit. And this is where I guess I'm asking you guys to take some sort of hit here because we can't just fund it fully.
We are taking a hit because our funding model that we get the majority of our funds from each year keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Like Patrick said, we get less and less and less each year from insurance.
And let me
We
go-
try to replace it, but you know, like you guys, everything keeps filling up.
Let me
Where
just
where do you
one-
want us to cut?
Yeah, but let me just give you one crazy example. 2 years ago, 100% of the commercial is the gold standard. They pay the most. 100% of the commercial insurance submissions for ambulance were going through. All these insurance companies have implemented these AI systems now where they look for some little detail in every bill and 30 or 40% of them now get rejected. Now these guys resubmit them and eventually many, if not most of them, get approved. But this is like this crazy unsettled nature of this business right now. It's not, look at, I'm only in this for 9 months right now. And I'll tell you, as my God's honest opinion that these guys, they are excellent at running and managing this service. This is not a management deficit that we face here. It is a structural deficit. And I don't know what the answer is. You know, I do know that maybe in the past, they kind of asked for a little too little. I mean, I know in my town, Stockbridge, they're gonna be putting in 600 grand a year into ambulance as the net after insurance in the deal with West Stockbridge. This still is way below that. And this is a town 3 times as big, you know, twice as big in the summer. So I don't know what the right answers are here, but I think that there's still a lot of value in the baseline $414,000 operating cost of this. And I don't think there's any way it could be a municipal service.
So let's say this. Say the 414, and I agree with Eric. It's a great service. I understand what you're saying. The increase is unsustainable, but okay, let's say we have to do that. For us, it's unsustainable. But now we're being asked to pay for 2 ambulances partially, and we're now up to almost $1 million.
Mhm.
And we just cut, or we just had a recommendation how to cut 1 million. And if you were just doing operating, I'd say we can't continue to increase 30% every year. But now we're being asked to pay for capital, and it's starting to get to be, not that you're not worth it, not that you're not great people. I just don't know how much we can continue to do this.
Well, I got,
A partial answer to that, and
Yeah.
that is that we are in the negotiations with your town manager for a contract.
Yeah.
And one of the things we learned from her, and I'm sure you guys already know this, is that she likes contracts and she would like to have them out 2, 3, 4 years. We are working on that with her now. We haven't agreed on anything yet, but we are working on something with her that would, where the amount of the increase would be.
That's really important, because whether you're talking about employees or anything, it's nice to be able to plan out 3 years ahead, so that every year we say, okay, we know what this is gonna be. That's super important. You're absolutely right. Well, but, and this has nothing to do with the ambulance, but you know, I think the utmost, and I don't like it when, not you people, but when people put it as, well, you're against the ambulance squad, or not against the ambulance squad. The ambulance squad
I
is,
didn't say that.
no, you
No,
didn't,
no,
I said
no,
that.
just-
No, but it's just, plus what's also become difficult is, as you just suffered through for 2 hours plus, is that this is not an easy year.
Yeah.
So
right.
we're already having problems. If it was the 414, I think it would be a lot easier. When, I'm not saying I agree with it or disagree, but that's one thing. Now we're doubling it for capital, and
That wasn't our proposal though, just so you, that wasn't, we didn't come in here with the idea of doing a citizens petition. That came out of the meeting that we had with you guys. So take that off the table if you'd like. I mean, I believe that they gotta get paid for one way or the other. You know, and nobody goes for the police cars and says, you know, we're gonna raise 30 or 40% of the cost of them with donations. Okay, there's this weird thing in Massachusetts where this essential service is not considered essential. And so we're out there scrambling. I mean, I'm calling friends of mine. I got a $25,000 donation. They came in today to help because of the problem you read about in the paper last week. We're trying our best, Steve. I got to tell you.
I know, and we're trying
Yeah.
our best.
Yeah, so whether it's kind of a help at least, basically the 48,000 in the payments versus the 490 in the warrant article, that is just either way paying only a portion of what it costs to buy these things. And my sense is it doesn't matter to us. We'll finance it. We'll buy them outright. Yeah, that's up to how you want to apportion your budget. You know,
This is still, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm confused on the basics of the ambulance need. I don't know if there's been something on paper, I just haven't seen it. I've read the articles and I'm confused by it. So are you looking to order 2 new ambulances, is that correct?
No, they're already ordered. They've been on order.
Okay.
We will get the first one in December, hopefully.
Right,
The second one will be coming late January, early February.
and roughly the price of each.
500,000 each.
A little less.
Okay, so what's so you're financing them, I presume?
Well, we would, unless you want us to buy them outright.
Why
because
would we, I just,
It wasn't,
it's straight, just a pure factual question, why would we buy them outright as opposed to?
we didn't propose that.
Yeah, well, so how do we get to that point? So why would we
Well,
pay
we're
cash?
asking is that
Yeah.
we're asking a capital expenditure to help us pay for them because.
Right.
But that's not the answer to the
Yeah.
question.
Just as a basic point,
Big
why,
chunk of money for us, too.
we all have this collective responsibility. Why wouldn't we finance the ambulances like any other vehicle we buy?
Yeah. Then let's do it that way.
Okay, so so there's, there's certainly a huge sticker shock associated with the warrant article.
Yeah.
So I'm still struggling with how we got to that, why
We were in a meeting a couple days before the citizens petition deadline closed.
Right.
And we're brainstorming the trade-off between capital on your budget and free cash impact versus operational impact. And it was suggested to us to sort of keep the option open for a later decision, which we are literally at today.
Right.
That we should submit the petition
Right.
and then discuss with you guys later on whether or not you want us to go forward with it. We can.
I know there's a lot, you're dealing with multiple issues with each town, it's very complicated, I totally appreciate it, but just to try to simplify it, isn't the best solution is that you finance both ambulances and each town pays a percentage of the.
So that's what the proposal that we put forward in November.
Right,
And in March, that came out November 1st, that proposal did exactly that. This came out of a meeting with you guys in March.
okay, but, yeah,
Yeah,
so
so, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, yeah, I was the one who brought it up,
Right.
okay, in the meeting that Patrick was mentioning. But I did not make them do it, they got the petitioned signatures, and they also, I advised them to weigh out the pros and cons of that option, so. And they did go get the signatures and they did file it, so if that is something that is gonna be retracted, it has to be done by the petitioner at town meeting, it can't be the town. It can't be the select board that says we don't want this on the warrant anymore, so it has to be done by the actual petitioner, Mr. Santos. Okay, so that being said though, Phil. The cost associated with even incorporating capital into. This was all prior also to a contract that is now being negotiated. But that too is not being seen eye to eye, okay? I'm having trouble with narrowing down and actually finalizing year 2 and 3 in the contract with actual costs. There's hesitancy that, because you can see the increases over time. And that was the genesis of also my hesitancy with even recommending or being supportive and showing support, was that if we're reducing our operating costs and everyone is staying within a certain bracket percentage, and then you have a vendor, they are a vendor, they're not associated, they are offering a public service, but they are a private entity and a vendor of the town. And when you have a vendor that increased the costs every year by 30 or 40 or 50%, there's room, there is a necessary reason to stop and have a conversation and ask these questions. And also have the community decide whether or not it is, so, I see, yeah, that's.
Well, I
that's
agree
kind
with
of
what you
it,
said
yeah,
100%.
yeah,
I fully agree. And it's just that we're, I'm personally struggling with the fact that there's a lot going on in the background away from me, with a lot of, people trying to get to a resolution of a very important problem. I fully respect that. But, we're kind of getting sort of this work in process type of numbers here. And it's really challenging to figure out.
Look, the contract in my mind is easy. This is simple. All right, you've got a big portion of this budget, about 63%, which is out of our control in insurance. And as long as the towns recognize that 63% has got to be basically, if we have a baseline, which is last year we took in 1.5 or 1.6, and that's the baseline. If it drops to 1.4, that can't be on a nonprofit with a couple $100,000 in the bank.
So let me just say one thing, Patrick, then I don't know where it came the downs to fund your deficit. And that really is what the problem is. We can fund each month. Look, do you want to say something, but let me speak, okay? And if you're part of the squad, you talk with them. But I don't need to have you telling me what to say, okay? When we came here 5 years ago, when I was here, the agreement was never to fund your deficit. And I understand health insurance,
I know.
and I understand it's a major problem. But I don't know that we can take on the role of funding a deficit. That's why if we were going, okay, we're gonna pay 414 this year, 6% more next year, 6% more the year after, we could actually have some planning. But it's very difficult when we're funding an unknown deficit every year. But Don, I'm sorry.
No, it's just the procedural thing, because I had mentioned it before. In a procedural thing, they're asking for close to $1 million for us to fund, right? If it passed.
Anywhere, right, anywhere between, say, 414, then 460 something, and then 900 and some.
Right, so
there's three different numbers.
oh, there's three, but there's two, there's the citizens petition, and then there's what we just put in there, right?
The number actually can be anything that the town supports. It doesn't even have to be 414. If you decide that you want to go off of last year's number and that's what they get, or 3% over that, that's what you determine is going on the warrant, because it's your article, it's the select board's article, and that's what I budget for.
But we
So-
changed what is on the citizens.
Correct, that's
So
correct.
that stands.
But the
right?
actual
What-
special article
but-
is.
Where we, as if I'm hearing correctly.
Yeah.
You don't care if it's one or the other.
Nope.
So we can't change one of those. That's the citizens petition.
Correct.
The only thing that we have that we could adjust or
Yes.
not fund is our portion.
The special article.
And then
yeah.
they're up to the town on the citizens petition approving it or not. If they don't approve it, you're screwed.
But we could give you a commitment in writing, for example, to withdraw a petition if you decide you wanted to do it the other way. There's no way that this group is not gonna act honorably. They give you the word they're gonna do.
They can do that?
Yeah, Tim at the town meeting can ask the moderator to pass it over,
Yeah.
the moderator will do that in a heartbeat.
So, and
It's just confusing. It's like.
Yeah, it is, you're right.
400,000 here and a $400,000, whatever.
Well, but they're for two different things, one's operational, one's capital.
Right, I
on the
know.
ambulances, there's two options.
But if I get confused, well, I'm not that. But, town meeting, I mean, this is a discussion that's gonna go on.
Well, there's two parts to this. So first of all, as far as the operational. If we recommend it, let's say we recommend the 414, we being the finance committee and select board, it's up to us to sell it to the town meeting. As far as the capital. Whenever we've done citizens petition, Michelle's knows this better than anyone, it's up to the ambulance squad to sell that, if we're gonna do that as citizen petition. We may or may not agree with them, but it's up to them to get the voters out there and to get it passed. But, so there's two parts to this, and there's seven.
I just want to point out though, that of the three towns in South County, they're most similar, Lee, Lennox and Great Barrington. Lee and Lennox have a completely municipal service. And that means they take on as a municipal organization, 100% of the insurance risks that I'm talking to you guys about. Great Barrington, you know, like the consultants were saying, you guys should be paying 62%. If they had gotten their way and we hadn't fought them, your assessments would be 50% higher than what we are even proposing, which is at 40%. And all I'm saying is that it is unrealistic in this shared service, which has a tremendous beneficial impact on your budget, to expect this thinly capitalized nonprofit to accept the insurance risk that towns like Lee and Lennox have to accept 100%. We all have the same model, which is you got insurance revenue offset by you know, the net amount the towns have to put in.
I think we're just saying the same things over and over here again. I think, you know,
Well, I get
we,
I'm sorry.
it's,
Yeah, let me go, Michelle, then you. Michelle, then you.
First off, I applaud your effort to raise money. I think anybody who comes before the finance committee and the select board and they want us to kick in, I like to see an effort that some money's been raised. Also, when we're talking about a town like Lennox, I work in Lennox, they have a split tax rate. Their commercial picks up quite a bit of the tax rate up there. And I talk to people in Lennox all the time. It eases the burden, although all towns are under burden right now, but it eases it somewhat. We don't have that here. I agree with Steve. This year just is a terrible budget year. And sometimes you gotta say, we just don't have it. We're just a repair on a bridge that's falling apart. We're going in that. And if I'm gonna be honest, I'd like to see more cut without cutting people. And the first thing would be vehicles, you know, if there's a way we can pull back on some of the vehicles. And here we're talking about buying 2 vehicles. Now, you know, it's one of those things. And if anyone has kids, you know that, you love your children, you want to give them everything they want, but sometimes you gotta say, no, we can't. And so there's a lot of good comments in this room, but it's just a really bad year. And I just mentioned to Ann, in between transitioning, I said, we just can't add anything else.
Yeah.
We just can't.
And I just want to point out that one of the challenges that we have is that there was never an agreement on a fleet schedule for these vehicles. So consequently, what these guys were doing to help save all the town's money was literally, when it was run for 12 years. They finally didn't get, couldn't get back on the road in January 1st. They ran them into the ground to save everybody money. Whereas the way that every other highway or police or fire vehicle would have been approached is a fleet schedule, and you just get rid of it after the 5-year kind of lifespan averages up. And we're moving toward that as one of the ways that we're gonna basically give you clarity and predictability in terms of the budget. You know, it's kind of a little bit of it's not past sins, it was past kind of trying to save every nickel of the
No,
year.
it's not,
Yeah.
it's just couldn't pick a worse year.
Yeah.
But can I just ask one more question?
and
As
Phil.
far as essential services, because I've been kind of following, where is the state on that? Is it okay to ask that now?
Of course.
I talked to Lee several times about this, and she's refiling all of her bills next year. I want to just point out that Senator Sear with seasonal communities, it took him 10 years to get that done. So the fact that in her first year, she didn't get it through because the Boston unions blocked it or whatever the reason was, I mean, it was something like that, something awful for rural. That I gotta applaud her and give her, the fact that she's gonna be right back at it next year, I think is a great sign.
Okay.
Bill, go ahead.
Yes, Patrick, you and Jim, you started the presentation by saying, and this is a crude summary, that the good news is that you're now fully staffed and that your operating deficit is greater. Now, I know, the insurance is a key part of this,
100%.
but so, and I know this is not like, you're not running a hardware store, so there's staffing is critical, but how does the staffing level affect your operating debt?
And actually, full staff lowers it. Our staffing costs are down about 5% precisely because look, you got 3 ambulances during the day and 2 at night, you gotta fill. If you're not fully staffed, the only way you fill them is paying time and a half.
But you don't have.
The other thing that brought it down to is that we
But
cut
you
our
don't have the
overtime.
ambulances.
We cut our over.
Yeah, that's it. So we cut the overtime. Yeah,
Well, Bill's asking, you have 3 ambulances to run during the day.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes.
So just to try to, it's a complex issue, I'm just trying to keep it simple.
Yeah.
But you're saying that your operating efficiency. And that your surplus is smaller. If you're running 3 during the day, 2 at night, and fully staffed, as
That's
opposed to a
right.
smaller operation.
Right. Cause we gotta fill it no matter what, and the per diems and the overtime, if someone's working 2 24-hour shifts, they're already getting 8 hours overtime. They pick up a third shift, that's 24 hours of overtime that they get, time and a half.
But, you know, obviously this is out of my lane, but if you're running at 3 and 2, isn't that going to, in all likelihood, increase your downtime on those vehicles?
Depends on the call volume. We have, that's something you can't quantify.
And you're next.
I think my question is a little related. I've been on the committee a long time, and you've come in front of us for many years. I do know, my recollection is that the transporting, the
Interfacility transports.
interfacility transports. My recollection is hearing is that's where the money is.
Correct.
How has that changed with full staffing, with 3 and 2?
With more staffing, we have been able to do several more of the interfacility transports.
But that doesn't really offset.
Well, it helps, but it doesn't offset everything completely, yes.
Okay, so there's
so-
really just only so much
Right.
interfacility.
So one
The only
ambulance.
thing where we can really improve a lot is the number of calls, that we do, and that's where the interfacility transports come in. That jumps up our calls, but it's not, it's not hundreds and hundreds.
Okay.
So to put it in perspective, an ambulance costs about $1.2 million a year to run. So the interfacility stuff might generate $700,000-800,000 a year. It's not enough to fund a standalone ambulance, but the good news is it only uses up about 25% of one ambulance's capacity overall in aggregate. So what you end up having is you get free capacity by taking that money on, because it basically helps you fund. Imagine coming here and saying, we want to get out of the IP business, give us an extra $800,000. It doesn't work. So it's basically kind of like the side gig that people might have, to pay their bills. It's kind of our side gig that takes up a little bit of ambulance capacity, but basically cuts your assessment in half.
But it's actually more than half of capacity, isn't it? I mean, you said it was like 700 out of 1.2. Did I misunderstand?
Yeah,
I
so-
said it was 700,000 out of 1.2.
So basically, if the third ambulance during the day and the second at night is basically paid for almost 3/4 by the IFP money, but it only uses about 1/4 of the capacity of one ambulance. So it's a really good deal, because it's a way to
It's
basically
not,
subsidize this process here.
That's a hard thing to follow, and
okay.
I don't think we need to get that deep in it right now.
Okay, and then I guess my other point is, again, I look at this and I see that Great Barrington is bearing the brunt because we have the most people. And I do know we went in the schools to assessing capital differently rather than the number of students, or, that it's based on the sort of town's assessed values. And I guess I just want to share, when I joined the finance committee, I remember I knew that Great Barrington paid more than other towns in taxes. And I said, I love living in Great Barrington and it doesn't bother me. 9 years later, I still love living in Great Barrington, but the fact that our tax rate is so much higher than the surrounding towns, and they, they benefit for the fact that Great Barrington is a large town that can make it possible for services to be available.
If we
I know
did,
we can't do it this year. Let me just, you don't mind if I.
Sorry.
I know we can't do it this year, but I really think we have to go out to the other towns and say, you know what? You're benefiting from having this sort of larger town in your mix to be able to make it possible for these services to exist. We can't keep making it such that Great Barrington is always paying the brunt.
Well, and I did that with Stockbridge last week. I got 50 grand, on the warrant to offset exactly this issue.
And we have,
Yeah.
you're asking for 5,
And they
6.
have a lot-
They're already paying, so I'm just saying this,
I know.
in addition, we're not primary down there. Okay, that is basically free money.
Right.
I think to your larger point on EQB, we already use EQV,
I
to
don't
do the,
know, I don't know.
the value of real estate, which basically is, the rich towns already.
It's what the school district did with the.
Oh,
Yeah, it's the same, we use the same model as the school district for these 6 towns, which is hugely beneficial
So it's-
versus call model. It's not based on number of calls. No.
That makes me feel a little bit better about.
Patrick, how are you getting to the operating assessment number? If I look at, again, I'm like Eric, I'm just looking at it for the first time, so. Your projected net operating deficit is 154. And that's including non-cash depreciation, so.
That
How are
includes,
you getting to this aggregate assessment across the town, looks like about $1 million.
yeah, that, the net budget includes having the aggregate assessments in the budget. And so the deficit is after we assess you, we still have a little bit of a shortage. The insurance only covers about 60% of the cost of the business. The other 40% has got to be made up or you have less ambulances. And I give you the full budget, Liz is a copy.
Yeah, the assessments that you have. You're projecting roughly just under 800,000 and aggregate assessments get to an operating loss of 155.
Right,
That's
but in the
what-
revenue side of
So that's
the,
why you're asking for $1 million to eliminate that. Is that right? About right?
No,
so there's in the revenue side, there's the numbers for the assessments and the numbers for insurance. Those are the two big money side.
Right.
All right, and then what's left over after everything is a slight loss that we're projecting for the rest of the year.
Okay. So what is the aggregate assessment across all the towns that you're asking?
It's I believe it's 832 in operating. And no, it's actually, I can give you the exact number. It's on the slide.
That's fine.
It's on the slide.
984.
Yeah, 984 and 135.
308.
So why does it say 793 under town assessment on the first page?
It might have been based on because our fiscal year is different than yours. So it's based on half of the fiscal year at last year's fiscal year level and half of this year. I know it's confusing. It's yeah.
Right.
So basically 2 of the quarters are paid at what's in fiscal year 26 and 2 would be paid at fiscal year 27.
Go ahead, Ken.
Hey, Steve, first I wanted to apologize, I
Don't
didn't
worry
mean
about
to
it. Don't
interrupt,
worry about it.
but you really don't fund our deficit, that's just what it costs to run the operation. And if you had, your own ambulance, you would find out how much more it would really cost.
Mhm.
But, for 50-something years, we did it for free. But then when we upgraded to paramedic, we had to start paying people because they can't put somebody in school for 2 years and then training for another and not paying. Plus, to be able to keep people, we have to keep the pay scales equal to what's around us. And,
Yeah.
I mean, we are definitely trying, and I know it is a tough year, and I think it's gonna get worse. But, I don't know any other way to do it.
I'll just say one more thing and then I think we can end this conversation
Yeah.
probably.
Sure. I'm already gonna ask the board after you guys are done. I think we're done for the evening and then.
And this goes back to something you were talking about, and this past year, the 2025 year, twice, the ambulance squad held meetings. We one in July and one in November of 2025. We sponsored them, we had you folks, we had select board and or finance committees from all 6 towns come up and meet with us. We got a pretty good turnout. We talked about things, we talked about getting you folks together so that you could come up with, you could talk about the ways that you fund us or that we ask for our funds that may be more agreeable to everybody. Nothing ever came out of that. And then the first meeting, we held the second meeting, saying pretty much the same thing. What do you guys want to do? Help us. We're willing to work with you. We give you a number. If you want to divide it up a different way, I don't care. We don't care how you divide it up. Again, nothing ever comes from these meetings. If you can give me another way to get people together and decide some of this stuff, I'll do it.
Jim, I think the problem, and maybe it's my memory because I'm old, is capital. I'm not sure we were talking about capital at the time.
No, but it's,
you have.
I mean, you're talking about capital, but it's also been operating.
It's been operating mostly.
All of that stuff, a better funding model, and we agree.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I think I was at least focused on operating and not focused on capital, and I think that presented, well, double everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because you were there at the second meeting, and you and Liz were both there,
Yeah.
I believe, yes.
And the budget was presented, which includes capital.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
the capital
I just don't think I was
Yeah.
focused on it at the time. So.
We're willing to
No,
work with you
I'm not
guys.
blaming anyone, I'm just trying to find a solution.
I know,
This
I
is
just
really
want you to
hard
know
and we
that.
get it, and I just wanna thank you all for your time, cause I know that we don't wanna be part of the problem, we wanna be part of the solution. Whatever, however we go about that, I mean, it's been a very interesting year but, you know, I think we're on solid ground. Finally, and I think that we will see stabilization in the non-insurance portion of this budget going forward. So the question is gonna be on the contract, how we stabilize what happens outside the area we can control. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Liz, obviously you and Ellie wanna go through more.
This
People
is,
here that you wanna,
this is on the board's decision, this is not mine, I mean, oh, I'm sorry, Paula?
yeah,
As far, okay, we're done with the ambulance, right?
for right now,
Okay, all right, yes, okay, so
if you wanna do.
it's
the-
very
yeah,
quick, it's
Yeah, that's
just,
fine.
because we already did the operation,
no, no
so it's
problem.
just
I
capital.
just,
Yeah, thank you, Paula. Okay, thank you, Steve.
no problem.
Paula is unavailable tomorrow,
This wastewater?
is wastewater. Okay, all right, so. All right, so wastewater. Capital. Going back, they have enough reserves, they have enough, it doesn't impact free cash, it doesn't impact any capital stabilization, it doesn't impact chapter 90, it doesn't impact. It is solely supporting off of the user fees, and there is enough money in the actual retained earnings, which equals free cash. That's the title for free cash for an enterprise account. Okay, so there are 5 items within the FY 27 capital improvement plan that is being requested and then also recommended. The first is the sewer infrastructure work at $100,000. This is just to modify the elements in conjunction with the road work. So that's the traditional existing hourly contractor and pay roadway contractor there. The second is a sludge loadout upgrade of $145,000. This is actually quite essential to improve this area and reconstruct it. The rollers and the actual ramp section of it has deteriorated and it needs to be improved. The third is a $30,000 placeholder for the which is year 6 of this project. Paula can go through it a little bit more, but it is through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and
Well, if we get approved. Yeah. For this amount, so the article, the language for the article has to be, the full amount has to be approved, the 250,000. Then if we get approved for the 150,000 grant, then that will be reimbursed and take it, and it won't be loaned. Well, actually, this will all come out of retained earnings. And then 70,000 of it would be in-kind services, the wastewater staff. This is, this capital project is mandated through our permit. So basically, we look at all our structures and, you know, and see what needs to be repaired. It's an ongoing thing, it's never gonna stop, we're trying to. If we can't get it out of our permit, it's just mandated.
But it's ultimately, it comes to $30,000 of actual from retained, from.
It would be retained.
Yes, thank you. I got my picture. Let's double that. The next is actually for engineering to continue the engineering designs for the capacity and the regulatory requirements of the long-term needs for wastewater. So this is an ongoing cost for the engineering components of it, of the operations. And then the last is the inflow and infiltration design work, for $160,000. This is for phase one. This is in a two-part, you'll see in the actual, I'm gonna speak back really quickly. You'll see in, the $160,000 for FY 27, and then part B of this same project is in FY 28 for $838,000. So that will be coming up for next year, but instead of asking for the full amount in 1 year, we've segregated it out into 2 years over a 2-year span in 2 phases. So this, because we need to have all of the additional work, so we're not having a big jump on 1 year of costs out of the retained earnings, that we can spread it across multiple years. So it's, so we can replenish the coffers in the retained earnings. Okay, so that, and that's for Avery Lane, the pump station, for the actual design, I think. No, I'm
No,
sorry.
that's
Yep, that's for Avery Lane.
Reline State
Yep.
Road.
So. And that is it. For capital, for enterprise.
Questions? It doesn't affect our taxes, we have lots to say.
Has,
I feel
So-
like we should ask the question.
Renee.
because it's
Is there
asked-
any
Oh,
impact of all of this on sewer bills and rates, any protection?
no, it doesn't impact, no, because those rates have already been implemented, they've already been established, so. This is out of existing balances of our retained earnings.
You save for a rainy day. And
Yes.
it's a rainy day
Yes,
Every year for capital.
every year.
Because that's how you should do it for these types of infrastructure projects. You have to keep the maintenance going and invest in it. You do not want a failed wastewater treatment plant.
I do.
So,
No,
Dark soil.
you talk about economic development, that will crash the community.
Yeah.
So, okay.
No argument.
Okay.
You're managing on the Artemis. Boiler fountains.
oh,
Let's move to citizen speak. Seeing no one?
Somebody, no hand will open up.
Questions? Eileen?
Thank you. I don't understand something and I'm getting what I want. You can just hopefully, where are you? Okay. On the ballot question, if the petition fails, items are cut, but if it passes, items are cut. But if it fails, then we apparently spend more money. I don't understand that.
Well, let me try to explain that. I'll let Liz correct me, because I'm probably wrong, but what it is, Eileen, is if it passes, if those warrant articles pass, then we have less free cash to spend on town projects. If it fails, then we have more free cash to spend on town projects. We have a finite amount of free cash.
But then those are the petitioned articles, but then the ballot itself, if the ballot fails, then we have to reduce $2 million from the actual operating, and we don't have $2 million in free cash still remaining to make that loss up. So I have to reduce money out of the lifeguards and all of the other things that have itemized out in that memo, as well as then the ambulance, because that's the only way, and take money out of the free cash remaining balance. So it's a combination of two. I can only find an additional $1 million out of the special articles, and then $1 million out of the remaining balance of the free cash, which either reduces the free cash to 171 or 403, I believe is the number, depending on if the ballot question passes or fails.
Then will the question on the ballot come before the vote on the operating budget?
Now, the ballot question is that town election and the town meeting.
Of course, yeah. All right, in that
Right.
case, how are people going to be expected to vote? Because as this is being presented, if the petition article fails, what is presented would automatically be approved. However, voters might not want to approve everything.
I think you mean the ballot questions.
Yeah, I didn't get that one. Someone else understood that.
No, the ballot question is $2 million, whether it be an override or
Right.
or a debt exclusion, but the choices of what you want to approve at town meeting are in the special articles, and those you can select whether or not you want to fund them or not.
And they'll be dependent on the ballot question.
That's the way that the warrant articles will be
Okay,
written.
so they'll be written in a
Yes.
way
Oh,
that
wow.
they-
That if the ballot actually
Yeah.
fails, then that way we don't have to go to another town meeting.
That's what I mean.
Because we have 45 days, you have to call a town meeting, and we don't have 45 days before
I
July
understand.
first, the new
Yeah.
fiscal year begins, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Evan. Anyone else? Okay, anyone on the select board or finance committee again?
Can I just ask a procedural question? So are we have public hearing tomorrow?
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow,
Yes,
okay,
first 5 o'clock.
okay.
And then afterwards, we'll be continuing our.
We'll be continuing the discussion.
Our discussion.
Yep. Anyone else?
I just wanna say, be careful, I had a phone call before I got here from, someone foreign sounding, asking me if I got my Medicare card this year.
Oh, the
You
Medicare.
told them you weren't old enough for that.
I told them.
Okay, good. Any media time? Then by unanimous consent, we adjourn. Thank you, everyone.